Hello and welcome back to the final part 3 of this Iron Flame plot recap. That's right, it has been going on for that many videos. Trust me, no one is more shocked than I. If you haven't seen the other 2 videos, I highly recommend that you go and start there, because otherwise this might be a little bit confusing. To be honest, even if you have seen those other 2 videos, it might still be confusing. Because the writing in this book, let's just say, I don't think it'd be getting an A star at GCSE. On that note, if you've enjoyed my previous Unhinged book recaps, I am going to start posting book-related content on my second channel, Ellbat, if you wanted to go and subscribe over there. Crazy, it's a rebrand. In 2025, in this economy, the only reason that I actually started posting these Unhinged recaps is because I was doing a video on this channel where I read every book that the TikTok algorithm recommended to me for a month. And it's kind of spiraled into its own thing entirely. If you have suggestions of book-related content that you'd like to see, and this doesn't have to be Unhinged recaps, please let me know in the comments down below. If it is Unhinged recaps, please give me a little TLDR of the series or book that you'd like me to read, and I'll consider it. But that will all be over there, because these videos have taken up so much of my main channel now that I feel like my regular audience is confused. And the crowd being confused is not good for the YouTube algorithm. Speaking of the algorithm, if you wouldn't mind giving this video a little like, a little comment, maybe share it with your aunt, your uncle, your book club, that would be amazing. Thank you so much for enjoying these recaps as much as you have and for giving such nice feedback, because it's allowed me the freedom to kind of do this, which has been thoroughly enjoyable. And yeah, I'm excited. Okay? Dare I say it? And you know what else I'm excited about? Incogni, the sponsor of this part of today's video. Listen up, riders. I've told you before, every year the likelihood of your personal data getting breached is increasing. And that's because of hundreds of commercial databases and people search sites that hold your personal information. I'm talking your names, your aliases, login credentials, home address, location information, and even your online activity. Yeah, they can see what you looked at on AO3. Yeah, they know the tags, babe. They've seen them. And they put all of this information online for anyone to get a hold of. And if you're thinking, that is awful, but probably doesn't apply to me, you might be wrong. If you've ever had a call from like a really disjointed robot telling you that either you owe taxes to your government that you're 99% sure you paid, or that there are hot, sexy singles in your area, you're on a data list, babe. So how do we fix it, you ask? And by golly, have I got an answer. Incogni, babe. Incogni reaches out to data brokers on your behalf, requests the removal of your personal data, and then deals with any objections that these data brokers have. And that's it. It's literally that simple. And since many data brokers continue collecting your personal information even after they've removed it, Incogni also conduct repeat removal requests. This means if a new record pops up, Incogni, they'll take care of it. And that's what makes their yearly subscription so great, because for as long as you are subscribed, they will keep protecting your personal data. I've been using them for years, and the sheer drop I had in spam calls was astronomical. Cannot recommend enough. So if you want to stop data companies from hoarding your private information, click the link in the description down below, or use code Ellbat to get 60% off an annual plan at incogni.com/Ellbat. Everyone say thank you, Incogni, for sponsoring this part of today's video. Thank you very much. And then say thank you to yourself for clicking the link in the description down below. Okay, quick recap of where we left off in the last video. Violet has essentially worked out how to put the wards up in Orisha, but there is, as there always is, a problem. Yeah, she's having a moral dilemma about it. She's gone to Bestie Rhiannon with this dilemma, and we don't know why. And I'm going to be honest, not 100% sure what kind of moral dilemma would make me not put up the wards that are keeping out the rapidly approaching dark wielders of death. But I guess Violet just has more sound morals than me. So I'm sure there's a really good justifiable reason as to why Violet is having a moral dilemma. She's got moral qualms about putting the wards up. And I'm sure that this reason is not at all a really baseless, convoluted plot point for no reason. A few days later, and I'm talking 6 full days, that's right, Miss The Truth is Very Important to Me Sorengale has yet to tell the council that she knows how to raise the wards. I'll be honest, babe, I don't feel like you've got your priorities right. Why? Because they're back in class. I hate to say this, I mean, because obviously you know everything, but there are like venin circling. There are wyvern everywhere. Every day, the most elite riders, who have, of course, finished school, because we can't be letting the approaching dark wielders of death threaten our GCSEs. Those riders are on kind of a patrol. Xaden is not massively around in the daytime because he's on these patrols. We can kind of get that the reason Violet hasn't told him about the wards yet is because he's so busy and the only time they really see each other is right before bed because Violet is still staying in his quarters. But at this moment in time, Violet's squad, including the newly merged flyers, are on a training exercise. And this exercise is where they have to essentially find and locate 30 runes that have been hidden all throughout a kind of dipped valley. These specific runes are summoning runes. Not 100% sure what those do, but that is the type of rune they are. The point of this exercise is to try and get the dragons to be able to sniff out runes, which means we have just turned big, massive dragon Tarninok into a glorified police dog, except instead of searching for cocaine, he's searching for summoning runes. It's no fun, is it, Taryn? It's no fun. And Darna has also come along on this training exercise, even though they didn't really want her to. They wanted her to go hang out with the other adolescents and play. But she's in her moody teen era, so nobody can tell her what to do.
I want to go with you.
And Darna says for the 10th time in the last 15 minutes, and I look over my shoulder to see her flexing her claws beside Tarn, her talons digging into the earth. Her black scales shine with a green hue this morning, reflecting the grass around her. Maybe it's the result of lingering gold, and breathing fire will steal the last of the shimmer. I have no clue how far they'll want us to fly. I keep my voice as gentle as possible. Longer than you're capable of, little one, Tarn adds.
I made it an hour yesterday.
And Darna argues, because that is what she does now. Trouble in Dragonland? Riddick asks, and Kat glances my way from his other side. She wants to fly with us, I answer.
I am flying with you,
she insists, digging more than just her physical claws in.
And this matter isn't up for debate amongst your human friends. Dragons do not consult humans.
I'm starting to wish I'd protested your right to benefaction when you asked the Empyrean to bond, Taryn grumbles.
Good thing you're not the head of my den then, isn't it?
Kodak should have known better, he starts. What are the other adolescents doing today? I interrupt.
The other adolescents are not bonded and do not understand me.
I swear I can feel Taryn roll his eyes. Yeah, that's right. And Darna is giving sassy girl. It's giving me when I was 13. We find out that this training exercise has a prize. And according to Rhiannon, the winner gets a weekend pass. No training, no homework, no limits. She glances at Bragan, whose lips twitch into a smile. We've been given permission to fly wherever we want. If your griffin feels comfortable flying the cliff wall, that means you can go anywhere. He looks at a cat. Even Corden, though you'd only have a few hours there before you'd have to start the flight back. If you win, of course. Oh, we're winning, Marin says, shoulder bumping Cat the same way Rhiannon does me.
Oh my goodness, kitty cat on the counter. Sir, that's illegal. Come here, you filthy criminal.
I reckon you would do a really good job on training exercise. Do you reckon you could find the runes?
You're protesting more than Adana. Methinks the lady doth protest too much.
Okay, here we go. He's too hot, or he's too much of a demon. It's one or the other. Essentially, if they want to win, they have to not only find the summoning runes, but they have to find and close more of the runed boxes than the other teams. And the teams are basically divided from the existing squad by Rhiannon based on their powers. At this point, we see a riot flying overhead, and Zaden is on Segale with a whole other crew of dragons that we recognize, including Heaton, Emery, and Sienna. That's right, it's a full riot, nobody's died. I'm guessing you got away with your new structure? I asked Zaden as they land behind our line of griffins and dragons. Taryn breaks away as if we aren't about to be sent on a training mission. In a way, Zaden answers. Violet basically asks him if the new structure went well because Zaden realized that their current formation doesn't work and he was spiraling a bit. So he's got his new structure and he's got his way with it. Violet's like, what do you mean? Was it okay? And he's like, yeah, no, we should probably discuss this when we have time to discuss this, instead of me saying part of it now right before you're about to go on a training mission. To which point our Lord and Savior, Bestie Garrick, comes up and he goes, good to see you, Vi. Garrick says as he walks by, tapping me on the shoulder, you definitely need to make him tell you about the venom he took down just outside Drathus. You what? My stomach pitches sideways. Thanks for that, asshole. Zaden glares at Garrick. Just doing my part to help your communication skills thrive in a stable relationship. Garrick turns and walks backward, lifting his hands in a shrug. Like you have any room to talk about stable relationships. Imogen counters from behind him. I'm going to skip the obvious pun to be made about plenty of mares in my stable, seeing as I'm no longer a cadet but a mature, responsible officer. She scoffs as he walks by. I don't know why Garrick now sounds like Jason Statham, but there we are. We need to go, Saringale. You took down a Venin? I pivot, keeping my attention on Zaden. Outside Drethus? It's the last Paramus stronghold before the cliffs of Dralor. You have any lengthy news to discuss? He replies, lifting his brows. Are you all right? News? His eyes narrow. I have to fly out. I drop my hands reluctantly, and he catches one as I retreat a step. We'll talk when I get back. Tell me now. The wing leader voice doesn't work on me. I squeeze his hand and let go. His eyes flare. You figured out how to raise the wards. I blink, then scowl. I hate it when you do that. Is my face really that easy to read? To me, yes. He looks towards the rocky path that leads down to Ryerson House. We should go now. How long will it take to raise them? No. I shake my head and turn towards my squad. We'll talk about it later. Discussion paused. At least tell me what was missed the first time. Dragons. I pat Darna's foreleg. The 6 most powerful refers to dragons, not riders. Violet essentially realizes it's one dragon from each of the 6 dragon dens. Remember, you've got like the red ones and the black ones and the brown ones and the green ones. In that case, I can have them up before you get back. No, you can't. I shoot him a glare. Are you two fighting silently? Kat asks, glancing between Zaden and me. They do that, Sloane informs her. Zaden ignores them both completely, keeping his gaze locked onto mine as we reach them. And just why can't I? I lean up and brush my lips over his cool cheek. Because you'll need Tern. Now go warm up. I have a mission to fly. Without another word to him, I turn to my squad mates. Let's go. Here's the tea. Violet, the truth is very important to me, Sorringale, did not, in fact, tell Zaden Ryerson that she knows how to raise the wards. In fact, Zaden Ryerson, Shadow Daddy Ryerson, leader of Revolution Ryerson, most powerful rider in a century Ryerson, seemed to deduce that information just from her facial expression. Right. Now, if it were me, I simply would not be believing that. Because there are many things that you can deduce from a facial expression, all right? You can tell if someone is happy. You can tell if someone is sad. You might even be able to tell if they really, really need to go to the bathroom. What I don't think you can tell from someone's facial expression is whether or not they've finally translated that 600-year-old journal about raising a ward stone. I just don't think that's commonly deducible information. And you could argue maybe he just loves her. Maybe to everyone else it looks like she's just ready to go on a training mission. But to Zaden, I am 100% definitely the only viable love interest in this story, Ryerson. He can deduce by the inclination of her eyebrows that she has in fact translated a 600-year-old journal. He's just built different. That's right, he has deduced that it's her intention to raise the wards. Gonna need you to remember that for later. Violet goes on a training mission, and of course, in her group is Kat. Yeah, who saw that coming? It's Kat, Violet, Sloane, and another rider called Vissia. So basically, Kat's just like a lone Griffin flyer at this point. She's outnumbered, outmatched, outgunned, but she doesn't fear anything because she has one thing, and that is the audacity. They're in a cave, as one casually is. They are trying to sniff out power signatures, and they are told by Tern that there was a time where the dragons used to inhabit every single inch of the caves. They had like a cave network, a cave system, and the dragons used to just like chill out, just roam around in them. Kat's mad because Violet brought Darna into the cave. It's also worth noting that Kat brought her griffin into the cave. So we got a dragon and a griffin in an enclosed space. That seems like a good idea. And it's quite dark, and they ask, hey, any of you a fire wielder? Can you give us some light? And Violet's like, nah, not a fire wielder. And Kat's like, babe, you brought a dragon? Famous fire-breathing creature. And Violet's like, yeah, sorry, this one, she can't breathe fire yet. She is but a babe. You brought a dragon. Kat gestures wide, motioning toward Darna. She can't breathe fire yet, I offer Darna with a smile. But she will. Remind her that I can sever her head with one bite. Darna growls, the sound higher than Tern's menacing rumble. I will not. What does Tern tell us? We don't eat our allies. That is right. Tern has taught Darna the #1 rule of dragonkind which is lie to humans, obviously. But the number 2 rule is we do not eat our allies. Beautiful work. That's really just parenting 101. We find out during this chapter that all of the Griffin Flyers share runes. Now remember, runes are symbols imbued with specific power for specific purpose. Runes are famously quite hard to make, which is why Violet was tying knots all of the first half of this book. And so basically, when a Griffin Flyer can make a specific rune, say a fire rune, they will then give that to other Griffin Flyers who might need that rune. This means that a lot of the Griffin Flyers have access to runes that the riders don't, because the riders are kind of doing this independently. They are all trying to learn how to do every single rune, whilst the Griffin Flyers have more of a sharing is caring attitude, I suppose.
You all trade runes? Vissia stares in open shock. And do you call yourselves a family? Of course we share. Whoever can make it, does. Then we all trade, so everyone is equally equipped. Kat shakes her head and stands, muttering a curse. I can't find it. That's brilliant, I admit. Why didn't you tell us? You're used to hoarding power, she says with a dismissive shrug, not sharing it. Now, unless someone has an idea for fire. Got it! I yank off my gloves and pull out my conduit, beckoning a trickle of my power to rise. It tingles, then burns as it flows down my hand, through my fingers and into the conduit. The tendrils of energy light our immediate surroundings.
Kat and Violet have this nice little admittance that they're both very powerful. It's all very cool. This part of this chapter is very much giving like group bonding activity and reminding you of lore that you learned a long time ago because it's going to be relevant in a few chapters. That's what the whole start of this chapter is. They then have a conversation that goes like this.
So, do you think you'll get a second signet? Vissia asks, breaking the silence. 2 dragons, 2 signets, right? I don't know, I answer, glancing back at Indarna. I actually figured because she bonded me so young and lost the ability to stop time, the signet of lightning wielding was all I would be blessed with. But now I wonder, will I? Why are you asking me? Signets manifest according to the person wielding. Her eyes blink gold, her black scales blending in with the darkness. Second signets only happen when a dragon bonds a rider in the direct familial line as its previous, Sloane says, misunderstanding Vissia's question. But there's an equal chance of it causing madness. That's what Fjord told me. That's why Kruth wasn't punished for bonding Quinn. She's only the great niece of her previous rider. Her signet's more powerful, but not entirely different. Fjord shouldn't be telling you matters resolved within the Empyrean, Vissia lectures.
So yeah, basically, Sloane and Vissia are asking Violet about getting a second signet because she has 2 dragons, and then they give us that debrief that Quinn gave us way earlier on in 4th Wing, where they explained that their signet for astral projection was a lot stronger because their dragon was bonded previously with someone distantly in their familial line. We get that little debrief, which obviously means this is going to become topical in the next few chapters. And also begs a second question. Why was Sloane discussing this with her dragon in the first place? Like, what was the context of that conversation? And what was it that was resolved in the Empyrean about second signets? The plot thickened about this mischievous little council of dragons. Now, this little piece of lore from Sloane here has Violet's cogs turning.
Gravity shifts. That can't be right. That would mean... Violet, are you okay? Vissia asks. I shake my head but say yes. How do you explain that your heart is sinking past the rock cave floor? I take a deep breath, flex and unflex my hand as I grip brightly the glowing conduit, and Darna growls to my right, and I quickly reassure her. I'm fine, but we both know I'm anything but fine. I'm also equally certain now isn't the time to let my mind wander down that path.
And you might be wondering, what is Violet I know everything Sorrengail figured out at this moment in time? Well, Violet has realised that Mr. Xaden Ryerson might not have been completely honest with her, because we learn earlier on in this book that Xaden's dragon Sorrengail was previously bonded to his grandfather. Gasps all round, gasps all round. This means Zaddy Ryerson must either be clinically insane or, more importantly, have a second secret signet. We're all shocked. Zaden, I have secrets. Ryerson has more secrets. Yeah, sorry, I did kind of hide that part about his granddaddy from you, but I thought it was better to save it for the dramatic reveal. Now, I'm going to be so honest. I do have some questions about this revelation, okay? You're telling me that big government, who has had their eyes allegedly on the marked ones like a hawk, none of them knew that Sorrengail was previously bonded to Xaden Ryerson's grandfather. There's not a single record of that anywhere. No one knew. No one thought, hey, doesn't that dragon look just like the one his granddad had? You're telling me there's not a single record in those massive bloody archives that no one stops talking about? Of all the secrets that you keep in there, you're telling me not one person wrote down, Xaden's granddaddy has a big blue dragon called Sigale. No one thought to write that down. I'm gonna be honest, big government are coming across as the least competent group of fascists I've ever seen. I'm baffled. I don't understand how this kingdom has not fallen sooner. How did they even win the war? They can't even make a note of man's dragon. Slight fact check here. We find out in Fourth Wing that big government do know that Sigale was previously bonded to Xaden's great uncle, but we find out in Iron Flame that it was not actually his great uncle, it was his granddad. And this kind of goes over Violet's head until this interaction. But like, I have some questions. Firstly being, what is going on with your family tree, babe? Why does everyone think your granddad is your great uncle? That's like a really crazy oversight. Like, that's actually really weird. Secondary question, if your granddaddy / pretend great uncle died whilst a student at Basgiath, was he a teen father? Was your grandma a pregnant rider? Or did he get a diva pregnant, leave to fly dragons, and die? Talk about being an absent father. So a possible fan theory explanation for this is that Xaden's biological granddad got a diva pregnant and then had the audacity to die. So his granddad's brother ended up wifing up Xaden's pregnant grandma, and now everyone thinks that baby is Xaden's granddad's brother's, thus making dead biological granddaddy look like great uncle. Yeah, it's giving family drama. And as I often do, I have a question. What does this mean for cousin Bodhi? Like, who is this man? Who is he to you? TLDR, Xaden Ryerson bonded a dragon that was previously bonded to a rider in his direct familial line, which means he's either insane or has a secret second signet. Crazy news. This revelation is shocking. Yeah, so we've got to add this to the list of things that Violet does not know about the alleged love of her life. And he's definitely going to argue that the reason he didn't tell her was because she did not ask. Yes, very good. But before we have time to ponder this revelation, we come across the summoning rune, the chest that we need to retrieve. Yay, we all say, until that moment is rudely interrupted by the arrival of Solus, Major Varish's dragon. Major Varish, by the way, who is deceased and doesn't have an X on his face. Hold on. Where is my little X's? I'm gonna be honest, one thing about me, I cannot cut a straight line, and maybe that's just the bisexuality coming out. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, so Major Varish's dragon Solus, the one-eyed guy, he's back, he's big, he's in a cave, very pissed off. Because if you remember famously, Dane did in fact stab Major Varish. And then Violet and Zaden had a weird couples bonding activity where they also stabbed Major Varish together. So yeah, as things often do for Miss Violet Sorrengale, things have gone from bad to worse. She screams for tiny knock, and in doing that, drops her conduit, and it shatters. Honestly, I fear that making the conduit out of fragile, shatterable materials was probably a big oversight. This woman is a dragon rider. She's rolling around on a dragon all day. We didn't think to give her a more robust conduit, something that was a little less breakable. One drop and it's gone. It's as fragile as Violet Sorrengale. Anyway, Solus goes on a mad one. He's killed Visea. Yeah, she's dead. It's tough break. Tough break. I mean, we all knew Visea was gonna die because, being honest, she just got some airtime and character development, and she was also the only expendable member of this quartet. So if you thought she was making it out that cave alive, you've clearly not read enough of Miss Becky's writing. Terran can't get to Violet because he's too rambunctious to fit inside the cave. Classic Terran. He's too big to fit, but that'll end up in a fanfic. Anyway, it's Violet, Kat, Sloane, Kat's Griffin, Kira, and Darna. They are squaring off with big, very angry dragon Solus in this cave. Dragon who, by the way, can breathe fire. Enclosed space. not fireproof characters. Somehow things have gotten even worse. Violet realizes that above all else, she needs to keep Cat alive because Cat is, of course, third in line for the Poramish throne. And if she dies, the alliance will probably be called off with Dracarys. Solus starts just spewing fire everywhere. That would be my tactical move too, King, if I was trying to kill all the humans. And Indarna wraps all of the characters in her wings. She's protecting them from the dragon fire. Quick thinking. Little A. Size comparison-wise, Solus is twice the size that Indarna is at this point, and she is, despite this, putting up a fight. Violet then manages to throw a dagger at Silas's one remaining eye, which, whilst very metal, brutal. That's so brutal. That's a blind dragon now. Listen, I know he's trying to kill you, but he only had one eye. Her stabbing Solus in the eye gives Cat time to get out of dodge. Cat's running. It's all very chaotic, but Violet, in all of her infinite big brain wisdom, she grabs a shard of her broken conduit and stabs it into Solus. She then puts her hand up and wields lightning. Obviously, the conduit is designed to attract her power, so the lightning goes straight into Solus, causing an explosion. It gives a massive wound that dents his very hard scales. Violet is flung back into the cave wall, and you're thinking she's probably gonna die, okay? She's in close quarters fight with a literal dragon. But no, because like she always does, Violet lives, and Cat and Sloane drag Violet out of the cave. Now Solus has a huge wound, and Dana now has the upper hand. She continues to fight Solus until she kills him. That's right, little baby Andana, certified felon now, okay? She's a murderer. But let's give it up for the girls for surviving a close encounter with a dragon in a cave. Well, all except for Sia. She didn't survive that one. Rest in peace, Vicia. At this point, Terran calls Indarna a slayer, which apparently is like slang for a dragon that murdered another dragon. Ooh, she's got a bad girl nickname. Sloane then realizes at this point that she drained Violet's power from her when she was dragging her out of the cave. Violet then tells her that this means her signet has manifested and she's what they call a siphon. This is a very rare power, by the way, and means that she can absorb powers from other people. I don't know if this means she can also wield them, but that's what we know at this point. She's kind of like a Venin. That's all I'm getting from this. Sorry, just giving Venin energy. Afterwards, Cat takes Violet. Wait, that's not Violet. That's Prince Arik. Sorry, babe. Afterwards, Cat takes Violet to a healer and thanks her for saving her life. It's all very nice because, of course, there is no greater bonding activity than almost being turned into barbecue by a dragon. I'm going to be entirely honest with you. It is at this exact moment in the book that I completely stopped believing in any of the stakes that the plot was offering me. I fundamentally stopped believing that Violet was ever in any danger, because she's not. It's getting to the point now where there are never any real consequences on Violet for being in the dangerous situations that she's in, so much more frequently, by the way, than any other character. And yet you've got these other characters who are in one of those situations, dead. And yet she's just ticking along still. And the thing is, you can say, you know, this is all about her strength of character, her strength of will. It's showing how people with disabilities can overcome despite the issues. Not all strength is physical. Right, I get that. However, there comes a point where during a fight, physicality matters, right? She's allegedly disabled. This girl is always getting broken, but she is very conveniently fixed up and made pretty again by a mender almost immediately. So these injuries and the consequence of her disability, her lack of physicality, has no bearing on the plot. Now, don't get me wrong, as a disabled girly, I would love to have someone just magically fix me the minute my disability acts up, right? That would be great. However, in my opinion, this completely undermines the significance of any of the plot-driven risks that Violet takes, where she is pushing her body beyond what her condition or disability suggests is possible, where she is like putting herself in harm's way to lunge or reach, even though her body's popping and locking, like she's in Step It Up. They don't have any weight, really. They have no plot-driven emotion for me as as a reader because I know that menders exist and she's gonna be fine. The only consequence that Violet can reasonably face at this point because of the menders is death. We all know that the female main character is not gonna die. So for me, I feel no emotional connection to Violet's physical sacrifices to save other people or herself. And because they happen so frequently, because she is in life-threatening situations, literally every other chapter it feels like, the stakes just fall so flat because she's just gonna be fine, isn't she? Let's be honest. She's gonna be fine, babe. I'm not. I'm losing my mind. There are so many other things that you can do as an author to create tension in your books that don't involve your character being in a life or death situation every 5 minutes. She cannot catch a break, but she cannot catch a break to the point where it doesn't ever feel like it's actually dramatic anymore. You know what I mean? I'm like so desensitized to her being in scary situations because I just know she's going to be fine. So I just don't care. Like, I'm reading this and I'm like, oh, you're telling me she's going on a quest and there's like several important characters I know and one irrelevant side character? Oh, I can guarantee there's going to be a death here. And guess who it's going to be? Irrelevant side character number 3. Like, I'm just like, she's like, maim the girl or something. You know what I mean? Give her some type of consequence, okay? Scar her. Put a scar on her face. God forbid our FMC is not perfectly pristine and pretty, despite constantly being in near-death situations. Honestly, at this point, for Violet to survive this many near-death situations and it not just be the result of poor writing, I am 99% certain that Rebecca Yarros in the next book is going to say she is blessed by a god or something, because that would solve 2 problems. One, it would solve the fact that everyone in this book keeps mentioning gods and yet none of them do anything even slightly religious at any point ever, and it's starting to feel a little bit like poor world building. 2, it would also save the fact that Violet keeps almost dying but doesn't, and excuses the fact that that is not poor writing, but the fact that she is actually just like death's favorite. Like, if I was a writer and I was being criticized for those 2 things, I too would make up a canonic reason why it's not the result of bad writing. It is in fact the result of divine intervention. Yes. On a side note, this is one of the reasons why I feel that Violet is not good disability representation. Obviously, I don't have EDS, but I do have a physically limiting, invisible, quote, disability. And for people with physically limiting disabilities or conditions, knowing that there will be enduring physical consequences for risks that you take with your body is what motivates you to think differently about how to approach physical problems. And most of the time, it involves you avoiding them, right? But Yarros, within the context of the plot, can't do this because the way that she's built the world relies so much on Violet's physicality. And within that dynamic, having a physically limiting disability is actually inconvenient for Yaros's world. So instead of coming up with ways to incorporate that inconvenience and build it into a more dynamic, complex story that has better representation for what it's like living with a physically limiting condition or disability, she made menders to avoid the consequences of what that world building would do to an FMC that is actually disabled. And not only is this annoying for me because I feel like it removes a lot of the emotional weight of Violet's physical sacrifices to help other people, it also means that there's actually no longer sufficient motivation for Violet to try and avoid those situations in the first place. Because instead of actually thinking differently about approaches that she could take to physical problems and adapt in a way that does not rely on her physical strength, most of the time Violet just ends up actually throwing her body around like it's able-bodied, getting really hurt, and then being mended. And it's just like, what was all that for then, babe? And this bothers me not just because I think it weakens the story, I think it makes the plot incredibly repetitive because Violet literally suffers no consequences ever, and that is just boring when she's in dangerous situations on every other chapter. But it's also frustrating to me because a lot of Yaros's framing of Violet's character is that not all strength is physical, and Violet's strength comes from her being smart. But when you actually look at the book, I just don't think that Violet solves the majority of her problems by being smart. Most of the problems are solved by Vi taking physical risks because she doesn't have to worry about any enduring consequences of her disability. And then after that, problems are secondly most commonly solved by someone else helping her or suggesting an alternative. Like, they are very rarely solved by Violet actually having a big brain. And I'm not saying it's impossible for her to have a big brain. I'm just saying that there are more situations where she does not solve a problem using her logic and her logic alone than there are with them. And I think if you're building a plot based on the idea that she is different because she's got this massive strength of will that allows her to overcome her physical weaknesses, and also she's super smart, I need to believe that her strength of will in overcoming physical weakness is not just because she knows that she could be fixed immediately after. Oh, and I also need to believe she's actually smart, because I just don't. The thing with the conduit, very cool. That was her using her brain power to fix a problem, right? Where her physical strength wasn't going to add up. Loved that. However, there are not enough examples of her thinking this way throughout the book that endorse the idea that she's intelligent. This whole book thus far has just been her having the same argument with her partner. It's her being really overconfident in her abilities, but getting things wrong constantly. And like, I'm not saying characters can't be flawed, that they can't be overconfident, but we are routinely told, not just by Violet, but by everyone else, that she is the smartest. And yet she very rarely, I feel like, uses her brain. After dragging in a cave gate, Violet and Xaden have a conversation. And can we guess what this conversation is about? Yeah, it is about trusting one another. At this point, we should just turn this into a drinking game, because we all would have been wasted a very long time ago, and I'm going to be honest, it would have made this more enjoyable. I'm doing everything in my power to both respect your freedom and keep you safe. And I don't even know what you're doing. Keep me safe, I laugh, sarcasm biting my eyes and making them sting. Is that what you do? I get it all mixed up with just not killing me. There it is. He retreats until his back hits the wall, and then he folds his arms and leans against it, crossing an ankle casually. Are you finally ready to ask me about the deal I made with your mother? That's right. Xaden brings up the fact that he knows that Violet knows that General Lilith and him made a deal whereby General Lilith would let the marked ones live as long as Xaden agreed not to kill Violet. And apparently it's Violet's fault for not bringing it up. Because she didn't ask. Honestly, these two are exhausting. It's like dealing with two 16-year-olds. I'm just so over it. I'm pissed you insist on making me ask for things you should openly share. How the hell am I in love with you when I feel like I barely know you sometimes? Thank you, Violet. That is what I've been saying this entire recap. Because I let you live long enough for us to fall in love. Without that deal, God's known what I would have done in my need for revenge. Ask me why I don't regret it. Ask me about the first time I saw you. Ask me about the moment I almost killed you despite the deal and decided not to. Ask me why. Ask me something. Fight back like you would have done last year before I broke your trust. Demand the truth. I need you to love all of me, not just what you decide to see. Right, so basically, guys, Xaden's crashing out. He is. Zaddy's having a crash out. Yeah. Xaden will tell her anything, but he's clocked that she's scared of the potential answers, and that's why he wants her to actively ask, because then he knows that she's ready and accepting to hear the truth that he has. Right? You want me to demand the truth? To ask you something real? Please do, he challenges. What's your second signet? She's only gone and done it, done exactly what he asked her to do for the entire book. And Xaden's reaction is this. His eyes widen. The blood drains from his face and his hands fall away. For the first time, I think I actually managed to shock Xaden Ryerson. I know you have one. Yeah, that's right. Diva, who's been saying all book, you want to know the truth, baby girl? You ask me anything. You ask me anything. So Violet, I need to know the truth, Sorengale, asks him something, and this man crickets. He's gagged. He's like, how dare you actually ask me a question? So he puts his stone mask on, and Violet is trying to figure out how Sorengale and Xaden even got away with it in the first place. But before Xaden can answer any of these questions, Brother Brennan sounds the alert that a horde of wyvern are heading their way. Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. Thanks for that. Couldn't have just had one piece of successful communication between our main couple. No, we've just got to go to another near-death situation immediately. I genuinely think at this point that Rebecca was just picking situations out of a hat
that she could use to extend the miscommunication of her two main characters to drag out this book as long as possible. She's like, and they all have to attend school even though they're in a rebellion. Yeah, that'll flesh out a few pages of them doing homework and going on like rubbish missions. This one, oh yeah, Xaden and Violet can't communicate about the venin because Violet needs to go and do some homework. Yeah, trying to find the runes. Right, okay, great. Dragon in a cave. Excellent. Yeah. Second signet discussion interrupted by wyverns rapidly approaching the city. Excellent. Just like, babe, really? Right. We then find out that Endana is in trouble for killing another dragon. Apparently, that's not good, but her actions have been found justifiable because Solus was trying to kill her rider. Everyone clap, and Dana is not going to Dragon Juvie. Meanwhile, Violet is hurrying to get the wards working. Remember the things she's known how to put up for like over a week at this point? And if she had just done that in the first place, this whole situation wouldn't be a problem, and she would have been able to have her conversation with Zaden, Zaddy Ryerson. Yeah, well, she's now in a rush. They gather dragons from all of the different dens because they realize that the 6 is the different dragons. They gather the most powerful dragons. They breathe fire on the wardstone. They don't have time to check to see if it's worked because they're in a rush to go fight the wyvern in case it's not. So, great. Yeah, the time pressure here just literally wouldn't have been a problem if we'd have done this 7 days ago. Again, I am struggling to understand why Violet did not see the time-sensitive nature of getting the wards up in the first place. Again, this feels like an unnecessary and completely illogical plot point that was done purely to create tension when the wyverns inevitably approach Orisha. And now it's like, oh no, will the wards go up? Won't the wards go up? Tell you what would have solved this if we'd have done it a week ago when we found out how to do it. I will be honest, we are kind of to assume at this point that they've done it, that she's cracked the code, because of course, Violet could never be wrong twice, God forbid. But it is a bit ridiculous because we've been waiting like the entire book at this point for her to correctly translate that journal and get the wards working. And then it's just like done in half a page. And then they're like, oh, no time to dwell on it. We have to get on the dragons because there's wyvern approaching. And it's just so underwhelming. Violet and Zaden are waiting in position for the wyvern to approach, and she's trying to guess what his signet is. The dragons are present, by the way. They're just kind of stood by, watching the argument unfold. Finally, Zaden tells her that if anyone knew what his second signet was, he would be dead. Interesting. He is also worried that this second signet is going to make her hate him. Of course it is. Because they could never just be happy. How long do you think it takes for someone to fall out of love? A day? A month? I'm asking because I don't have any experience with it. I'm asking because I think it will take you all of a heartbeat once you know. It's a bit dramatic. Again, he should have been in a drama school. You're telling me there's no actors in this world? No plays? This man, he's made to be a thespian because he's living for the drama. Okay, so in case you hadn't already guessed it from his cryptic words, Zaden Ryerson second signet is... drumroll please, he's an intrinsic. And as we know, because we were so thoughtfully demonstrated in Fourth Wing, being an intrinsic is a death sentence because it allows you to read people's thoughts without having to touch them, and they're deemed too dangerous to live. And that's why that poor kid in Fourth Wing got his neck snapped by his professor. It was all very sad. We had a visual demonstration though to set us up for this. I'm a type of intrinsic. That's right, Zaden is not a regular intrinsic, of course, because he is not like other girls. He is an intrinsic that cannot read people's thoughts directly, but rather he can read their intentions. And if you're like me, at this point, you went, huh? This honestly felt to me like Miss Becky originally wrote Zaden as an intrinsic mind reader, and then a bunch of people online guessed that he could read minds, and she was like, nuh-uh, nuh-uh. Okay, sure, the I can read intentions thing does check out when you consider that in Fourth Wing, when Violet caught him and the other marked ones meeting illegally under the tree, and he asked her if she was going to report it, and she was like, nuh-uh, and he hit her with a, you really aren't going to, Are you?
But, and big important but here, it does not explain how he knows that Violet recites book passages in her head when she's stressed when the intrinsic appeared in book 1. He literally tells her when he's shouting everyone's thoughts, you need to like recite the books like you do when you're stressed out. And to my knowledge, Violet doesn't tell anyone that she does this, least of all Zaden, at any point in Fourth Wing. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty certain that that's true. So are you really telling me that Violet's intention was to recite books? And that's how he knew that she does that? Was the intention do a big lore dump disguised as thinking? Like, oh, come on, that doesn't make any sense. Because if that's the case, which I think canonically now it is, he has like no limits on his power. He knows exactly what everyone's going to do all of the time before they do it, which is basically just like seeing the future. And that doesn't even just apply to physical actions either. If you intend to think something, he can read it? Is Xaden Ryerson God? Again, just in case you needed another reminder that this man is, of course, the only viable love interest. He is now, like, the most powerful person ever. Oh, and by the way, I'm not the only one mad at this situation, because, guys, Taryn is growling at Sigale. That's right, the girls are fighting. A rush of something bitter and sick floods our bond. Betrayal. That's right, Taryn didn't know about Xaden's second signet either. Sigale kept it a secret from her mate. Nah, these two are my bad books now. Lying to Violet, fine, okay? Fine. Lying to Taryn, big no-no. Big no-no.
Less than a minute, Xaden whispers as Sigale moves toward him. That's how long it took for you to fall out of love with me.
Violet disagrees, but they don't have time to talk about it. Why? Oh yeah, because the Wyvern are approaching, because she didn't put the wards up a week ago.
You better live, because I'm ready to ask you all the fucking questions.
Now, I get that this line is supposed to go hard, but she's just like threatening to ask him questions about himself. It's just an interview, basically. Anyway, as the Wyvern approach, Taryn senses that there are 17. But as they get closer, they start slowing down. Why? Because they can feel the wards. That's right, wardstone activated. At this point, Violet sees the Sage, aka Chief Venin, on top of one of the Wyvern. This is the same Venin that was at Resin and the one who is lurking in her dreams. The Sage looks between Violet and Zaden before pointing at Zaden. Zaden then tells Violet that he loves her, and if nothing else, to hold on to that. Taryn then blocks out Zaden and Sigale from being able to communicate with them, saying, do not speak to her as if death is a possibility. Taryn is not chuffed with Zaden treating this like it's the end of the world, but it is interesting that it takes Chief Venin Sage pointing at Zaden for him to be triggered to say this. As a Wyvern tries to cross the barrier, it falls and crashes into the ground. That's right, it's dead. But just to be sure, another Wyvern tries to fly at the riders. It also crashes and dies. Yeah, that's right, the wards are up, and Chief Venin, he retreats. All that drama for absolutely nothing. I'm going to be honest, all of that didn't need to happen because any reasonable person would have put up the wards a week ago. Like, Violet has genuinely, with her actions here, put the lives of every single person in Orisha in danger. For no reason. Like, the anxiety, the stress, the cortisol levels through the roof. Why? Because Violet was like, but the Griffin Flyers might not be able to channel their powers. I'll tell you when else the Griffin Flyers wouldn't be able to channel their powers. If they were dead. Which they will be if you don't put the wards up, babe. After the failed attack, the atmosphere in Ryerson House is joyous. That's right, everyone's feeling great. They did not die today. They also get the news that General Melgren, remember that old chestnut? He's got the only other black dragon. He wants to meet, but with no more than 2 marked ones, as well as Violet and Mira Sorringale. This indicates that General Lilith Sorringale of big government fame is likely to attend the meeting, and that General Melgren knows that if a fight were to break out, that big government would win. Because remember, his signet is that he can see the outcome of battles before they happen. But he can't do so if there are more than 3 marked ones involved in the battle. At this point, Serena of aristocratic Griffin Flyer fame, she tells Violet that she can still channel. Now, this is good news and bad news. Good news, yay, Griffin Flyers aren't powerless. Bad news, something with the wards is clearly broken because they should be able to do that. Uh-oh. And I would say I'm surprised, but at this point, nothing ever goes right. So I'm just not. During the next chapter, Violet and Xaden have like distant vibes. She's sleeping in the library, I think, while she kind of sorts her head out, but she does still love him, which is good. But it does confuse me more because if Xaden can read intentions, including intentions of people to think certain things, does he not already know this? Like, why are they being distant? Why did he say that she fell out of love with him? Read her intentions, baby girl. She's clearly still in love with you. So you're just lying for the drama? Like, what are you doing? Why are they having any conflicts at all if he always knows what she's going to do and what she's thinking? Just, I'm baffled. Sigale and Tern, that was the wrong way around. Sigale and Tern are still fighting, or as Violet puts it, Mum and Dad are fighting and everyone knows it. At this point, Violet and co go to meet General Melgren and General Lilith at Athen. When they get there, they are, of course, offered refreshments by big government, and Tarn very insightfully points out that they are probably poisoned. I'm gonna be honest, big government at this point are really giving untrustworthy man at a party vibes. Seriously, how many times do big government think they can get away with that trick? Okay, this is like the 4th time they've tried to poison our protagonists via suspicious drinks. It is worth noting though, this is the first time Violet's actually said no to one of the suspicious drinks, so I guess she's learning. At this meeting, General Melgren says that the rebels didn't escape, but rather he let them all go. Yeah, he did. Because he knows that he was going to need them for an upcoming battle. Which, like... Sure, Jan. Honestly, at this point, I'm not even sure who he's trying to gaslight with that information, because nobody's falling for it. But Melgren does say that the Venin are going to attack Samara and they're going to win. Quick explanation for this. Melgren essentially says that he sees the Navarian forces losing the upcoming battle at Samara to the Venin. And he says losing this battle means that Navarre ends up falling to the Venin on the solstice, which we'll get to in a minute doesn't really make sense. But basically he's saying if the wards at Samara fall, all of Navarre is toast, babe. So you need to help us fight right now. Melgren then asks the rebels if they will fight on behalf of Navarre because he believes that it will change the outcome of the battle. In exchange, Melgren is willing to offer the rebels that are based in Orisha, that are in Tyrandor, you with me? Their independence. Basically, TLDR, Melgren's come crawling back. Yes, he has. He's on his knees. He's begging, but he's pretending he's not begging. He's like a really toxic, annoying ex. Some bickering ensues, but finally, previously thought deceased brother Brennan steps forward, and General Lilith Sorengale is gagged. It's given Sorengale reunion. If only dead Daddy Sorengale would come back to life, which, you know, isn't off the cards at this point, given Yaris's writing style. The only people that seem to stay dead in this book are like the insignificant side characters. Not you, Liam. I could never talk about you like that. When all 3 of your children stand against you, perhaps the time has come for self-reflection. Brennan says that they rule by committee in Orisha and that they are probably going to decline their offer of peace, which, you know, understandable. And at this point, General Lilith asks to speak to Mira and Violet privately. Lilith says that most of all, what she wants is for her children to live. Which... Don't know about you, but I am not believing based on her previous actions. She tells Violet that the ward she put up yesterday over Orisha will fail, and that she should cut open the bodies of the wyvern that fell when they tried to cross the wards. Basically, their wards will fail over time, so Violet needs to fix it. This is because Warwick, man in the journal, he never wanted anyone else to hold power of the wards. He wanted Navarre to eternally hold the upper hand, but Lyra thought that knowledge should be shared. All of this is a very long-winded way of telling us that the journal they have in Orisha is not the journal they need, and the journal they actually need is Lyra's journal, which was the one that was confiscated by big government when Violet got captured. Because of course it was. You may ask at this point how General Liz Sorengale, CEO of the college that kills adolescents, knows any of this. Because of course she famously is not big brain, because you cannot be a rider and also have big brain, which is why Violet is so incredibly unique. And the answer is, she learned it all through dead daddy dearest Sorengale. General Liz Sorengale then proceeds to subtly slide Lyra's journal to her children. She's like, Oh, you might be needing this. This might be the first time we've seen General Sorrengail actively help the plot. A little treason. Nice. Violet considers at this point that her mum is lying about the wards failing in an attempt to get all of the rebels back to Navarre where they're safe within the Navarian big wards. Back in Orisha, they cut open the wyvern as instructed by Big Lilith and they discover runes. The stone rune inside the wyvern begins to hum and a wyvern nearby begins to reanimate before Violet quickly kills it with lightning. Uh-oh! That can't be good. Violet decides at this point that her mum probably wasn't lying about the wards going to fail because she didn't lie about the wyvern and also the griffin flyers can still channel. We call this a redeeming arc. During the next part of the book, Violet's just basically trying to get Brennan to reconsider Melgren's offer because their whole rebellion thing, their ethos, if you will, is to save everyone. But by letting Samara fall, which will happen, Melgren's already told them, that's guaranteed, they are just letting people die. So you see the dilemma. Meanwhile, Violet gets busy trying to translate Lyra's journal. Felix has given her a new conduit, this time with a strap, so she doesn't accidentally drop it. It's given Wii Remote. Sorry, I am powering through this because it's been dragging on. In shocking news to everyone, Violet forgives Zaden for his second signet thing. Promise you won't use it on me again. I promise. So I guess that's all settled then. At Battle Brief, it's shown that their patrols believe that the Venin have pulled back almost everywhere thanks to the new wards, which means they are likely preparing for the battle at Samara that Melgren foresaw. The going estimate is that Samara is going to be attacked with over 500 wyvern. That's a lot of wyvern. Yeah, it's going well. Things are looking really great. So essentially the council decides they will not be going to help the Navarians in the battle for Samara. That no griffin flyers, no riders, no one from Orisha is going to help big government. And they discuss this in Battle Brief. They discuss where the Venin are, where they're gathering, and basically some students are not happy about the council's decision not to help save all of the civilians at Samara as well as the Navarians who are going to try and defend it. It's hard to get an accurate count, but we estimate upward of 500 wyvern. Devari glances at Brennan, and when he doesn't speak, continues. And there are dark wielders among them. A litany of swear words is murmured throughout the theater. And why is it we're not engaging? Someone from First Wing asks. Because we're spiteful, Quinn says from behind me. What was that, cadet? Devera calls her out. Quinn shifts in her seat, but when I glance back, her head is held high. I said because we're spiteful, she repeats, louder this time. Nailed it. Ree says under her breath. Brennan clears his throat. We're not engaging because the assembly voted and decided that the casualty rate among riders and flyers would be far too great. A battle this size could annihilate our forces, leaving the rest of the continent undefended. I shake my head at just how familiar that reasoning sounds. Some of us have family in Navarre, Evelyn says, a few rows in front of me with the other first years in our squad. Are we supposed to just sit back and wait to hear if they die? They should have left, a rider retorts from somewhere in the vicinity of Second Wing. Not everyone has the means to pick up their entire lives and move just because a war is coming, you elitist prick. Yeah, you tell him, Evelyn. You're definitely going to die in the next battle. Because this is the first time you're getting a bit of a backstory, babes. This is not what Battle Brief is for, Devara shouts. Let's spin this the other way, Brennan says. If you were Melgren, what would you be doing right now? Shitting myself, Riddick answers. Brennan rubs the bridge of his nose. Other than that, bolstering the wards, Rhiannon offers. As long as they remain at full power, this is all a bluster on the part of the enemy. Basically, they ask Violet what she would do, because of course she's a brainiac, and she basically says that they should get all of the daggers, the special alloy daggers that they have, and concentrate them at Samara, because apparently those daggers can boost the power of the wards, I think. And if the wards are up and powerful, wyvern die the second they get within them, and the dark wielders can't channel within the wards. So basically the attack would be useless and Samara would be saved. Yay! As long as the Navarian forces can physically repel the dark wielders and keep them from scattering the power supply in the armory, then there's no real danger of incursion. And that's exactly my point. But Melgren saw them being defeated, a flyer from Second Wing says. Let's run through that fort. Devera gestures to the map. Should the wards at Samara fall, what would happen? They'd have a direct line to the hatching grounds. Someone answers. No, I reply. That portion of the wards would fall back to its natural distance, about 3 or 4 hour flight from Basgiath, just like ours. The power supplies in the outpost extend the wards. They don't create them. So a large piece of Navarre would be unprotected. Blinking, my gaze finds my brother's. He nods. Melgren was bluffing, banking on us not fully understanding how the wards work. He used a scare tactic to get us to agree to fight. So essentially at this point, Violet works out that Melgren was lying wrong when he said that all of Navarre is going to fall if the wards at Samara fall, because we find out that the wards at Samara don't control the big ward that is located inside Basgiath. They just extend the power of the big ward, which means if they lose at Samara, they shouldn't lose all of Navarre because Navarre is still under the protection of the big ward at Basgiath. So essentially, Melgren's just a big stinking liar. Unless, of course, he isn't lying, and everything he says, he did really see. Now, how would that make any damn sense? She runs through her head a few scenarios where she realizes she's like, Basgiath is safe because they have the wards. And then she's like, unless, of course, someone knows how to take down the wards. Oh, wait a minute. My mind spins as my heart lurches in my throat. I stare at the map, at the thin line of the border that remains uncrossed by what appears to be the undefeatable legion of the enemy, and a thought so terrifying I can barely reach for it begins to take hold. How old is this information? I'm sorry? Devera's brows rise. How long have they been sitting at the border? I clarify, my nails biting into my palms. She glances at Brennan, who replies, they've been there for 3 days. This morning's report confirms they haven't moved. Oh, gods. We act now. Taryn's voice rumbles through my head. I stuff everything into my bag as Devera calls on another writer to answer a question. What are you doing? Ree asks in a whisper, and I notice almost every member of my squad has turned to watch. I need to find Xaden. I sling my pack over my shoulders and slip my arms through the straps, preparing to stand. It's not Samara. All right, we're coming with you. Basically, she finds Xaden. Xaden's like, what's going on, baby girl? Tell me the tea. And she says, it's not Samara we have to worry about. Why? He keeps his eyes on me despite the shuffling of my squad mates. Because they're sitting there, waiting. They've been waiting for 3 days. Why? If I knew their thought processes, this war would be over, he replies. Melgren says they're overrun on solstice. That's the day after tomorrow. Gods, we're going to have to move quickly. He nods. Wyvern aren't going to take down the wards at Samara. They can't fly past them. Plus, smaller hordes were moved along the full border. I think Samara is just a distraction. I think they're waiting for them to fall. I think they're waiting for them all to fall. His eyes flare for a heartbeat. The battle can't take place somewhere else, Sawyer argues. Melgren would see it. Not if we're there. Sloane counters. Melgren can't see the outcome if 3 of us are there, remember? She holds up her forearm, where her relic winds above the edge of her sleeve. Exactly! My fingernails bite into my palm. He can't see the real fight if we're there. He has all his forces concentrating on Samara, when they should be at Basgiath. Zaden finishes my thought, his eyes searching mine. The veil. Yes. Do you want to go back? Of course we do, Riddick answers. I wasn't asking you. Zaden holds my gaze. Do you want to go? Do I? Navarre's lied to our people, lied to us for 600 years. They would never come to our aid, Sloane says. They've definitely never come to ours, Kat agrees. They've let Parmish civilians die time and time again, safely tucked behind their wards, pulling the blindfold over Navarian citizens' lives. The hatching grounds are there, Rhiannon argues. We have our own here, Traeger counters. We have to leave almost immediately, Zaden says. Do you want to fight? We have to. Gasps all round, gasps all round. That's right, we're about to get the battle for Basgiath. And Melgren can't see the outcome of that battle or that battle itself because there's too many kids with rebellion relics involved in that battle at Basgiath. Sorry, this part of the plot is needlessly confusing. That's why there are so many voiceovers, but bear with me. Melgren is a big bloody idiot. He saw a battle that costs Navarre the war against the Venom. He sees a battle happening at Samara and he's like, that must be what costs us to lose all of Navarre. And so this is why he goes to the rebels at Orisha and asks them to fight at Samara. When he asks them to fight, he tells them that Navarre falls if the wards at Samara fall. And the rebels then work out that that doesn't make any sense because that's not how wards work. So they're like, Melgren's a big stinking liar. Turns out Melgren was telling the truth, but he was not getting access to all of the information that would help him work out what the truth actually was. He's got like partial visions because whilst there is a battle that was going to happen at Samara with the wards falling, it wasn't because the wards at Samara fell, it was because of all the wards falling because of the big ward at Basgiath falling, and he can't see the big ward at Basgiath falling because the battle that makes that ward fall, kids with rebellion relics are involved in, which means he can't see it. So he's got like half information and he's trying to fill in the dots, but him trying to fill in the dots made the rebels believe he was lying, so they don't feel the need to help him because they think he's lying. And then Violet works out that maybe he isn't lying, maybe he's just got partial information. So basically there are two battles that are going to happen, but one is massively more important than the other, and that one is happening at Basgiath, and Melgren can't see it. So all of the Navarian forces have gone to Samara, and that's just like the baby battle, babe. That's not the big one you got to worry about. But that's the situation as it stands.
And naturally, of course, because she is the smartest in the room, the only person who has figured that out is Violet Sorringale.
So if you didn't know what was going on there, looks like the Venin are figuring out a way to take down the main wards, which are in Basgiath War College. And once that ward goes down, the main wardstone, we haven't got to worry about one little extended ward at Samara going down. No. Every single ward, extended or not, across Navarre will go down. It's not looking good, babe.
The Venin have someone on the inside.
Side note, I do have to say, it is incredibly convenient that General Melgren can't see the outcome of battles if there are more than 3 rebellion kids present, because that is the only reason that we don't get spoilers for the entirety of the rest of the book. I mean, at this point, I don't think I need to have General Melgren's signet to know who's going to win this battle. Partially because 1, we have a 3rd book, so shocking. Secondly, she honestly could survive the apocalypse. Like, there's nothing. She's like a cockroach. Not even a nuke could kill off Violet Sorringale. So Violet relays this news to the council, and they're a bit split. Brennan, Kat, that lot, they don't want to go, because at the end of the day, they don't want to go and help Navarre, because Navarre has done very little but lie to them for like the last 600 years and let all of the Poromish civilians die. Yeah, they did do that, so fair enough. Violet, however, she can't, of course, stomach death, unless it's Major Varish's, and so she's gonna go and help. If we don't go, we're no better than they are, leaving their civilians to die when we might have the very weapons they need. And Zaden, because he does everything this woman wants except voluntarily tell the truth, he's gonna go with her. Mira also goes with Violet, but Brennan chooses to stay back, as does Kat and Sloane and some of the other girlies. All in all, about half of the rebel forces choose to return to Navarre to fight. The other half, flyers included, choose to stay at Arisha. They all fly the 12 hours to get to Basgiath. And when they arrive, they aren't stopped by anyone. Violet rushes to tell her mum that someone within Basgiath is going to take down the wards, and that is going to allow the Venin to come, and there's going to be a major battle at Basgiath. And Lilith is a bit like, babe, have you hit your head? Calm down, I think it's very unlikely. Violet basically begs her mum to go and inspect the wards, and eventually Big Lilith Sorringale agrees. Like, I'm gonna be honest, has she done anything really helpful at this point? Like, why is she acting like this is the biggest ask? You've just got to go to the basement and look at a stone, babe. Violet's just flown 12 hours to tell you this, and you're like, ah. Lilith, pull your weight. They go down to the basement to go and look at the wardstone, and they find that the guards are, of course, dead. Yeah, not looking good. Not looking good. Lilith then begins sprinting towards the wardstone, and the rest of the group are running after her. And when they finally reach the big room where the wardstone is kept, they find Bade, MTV Music Award winner for Best Visuals, Jack Harlow's dragon. Taryn then demands that Bade leaves, but Bade swipes at General Lilith Sorringale, and Taryn can't get to her in time. General Lilith Sorringale is knocked unconscious. And then MTV Music Award for Best Collaboration winner Jack Harlow appears. Again! And he wants to destroy the wardstone. And then of all the people he could hurt, Jack Harlow goes and hurts Riddock. I'm furious. General Lilith's still unconscious. So at this point, we've got Violet, Xaden, Mira, and Dane versus man who will not die, Jack Harlow and his dragon Bade. Or at least it was all of that lot versus Jack and his dragon Bade, until Jack kills his dragon. I've got no idea what's going on. Honestly, at this point, my mind, it's breaking. I'll tell you what else is breaking. The wardstone. Yeah, it's broken in half. Who'd have guessed it? Jack is still evil. So yeah, the wardstone is now broken in half on the ground. Yeah, the wards are down, girls. They are. This is literally worst case scenario. Now at this point, you may be thinking, hey, I remember back to 4th Wing when we found out the hard way that when your dragon dies, you die. Very painful experience. We were all very sad. We're all very familiar with that. So why, pray tell, would Jack, CEO of I'm the worst at pretending I'm not evil industries, kill his own dragon? Didn't have him down as the kind of man to want to hit it and quit it. You know what I mean?
it being life, given that he famously came back from having a mountain dropped on him last time. It's not really given a man who's happy to tap out. And you would be correct in that assumption because Jack doesn't die. Yeah, no, he doesn't. And I just have one question. Why? Why, out of all of the characters, does this little rat get to endure? Why does the needlessly mean man, who has no personality beyond being a big mean psychopath for purposes of plot development, get to live when Liam did not? Well, the answer to that is because MTV Music Award for Best Art Direction winner Jack Harlow has turned venom. Yes. Yes, he has. If you think that's bad news, just strap in, girls, because it will, of course, be getting worse. Jack starts drawing energy from the ground. Yeah, we've seen that move before. Very popular amongst the venom. But Zaden uses his shadows to pin Jack to the ceiling. As you can see, I am a little bit confused as to why he can't channel through the stone ceiling as well, which is connected to the floor via more stone. Honestly, this did kind of remind me of when my cats have got the zoomies and they're being insane, and you put them in air prison. You know, like when you just lift them in the air and you're like, you're in jail now. No zoomies for you, you've gone too far. And I did just have to do that, by the way, because I just got swiped. They then tried to keep Jack alive in order to be able to question him. Very smart. I see we've learned from our mistakes previously. And then friend of Lil Nas X, Jack Harlow, does exactly what I thought he should do, and he tries to drain via the wall. Honestly, I don't know how they didn't think of this, okay? I did, and my IQ is firmly in that normal band. I'm not even the smartest in this room. I reckon my cats could take me. Zaden's shadows move him away from the wall. He's now in like proper air jail. At this point, Dane steps forward to try and touch Jack to read his memories, but Jack grabs Dane and tries to drain him. I'll be honest, at this point, Jack's just really trying to drain anything he can get his hands on. His grubby little mitts. He's just like, give it here. Thankfully, Dane's fine. Good news, because remember, we like him now. He's had his redemption arc. The main thing they want to know is how long Jack has been venom for. And Violet says that she reckons they've not known Jack when he hasn't been venom. Since we met him in book 1, this man was a venom. Now, who the bloody hell would have worked that out? Me. I worked that out. If you go back to my Fourth Wing recap, I specifically highlighted points where it appears that Jack is acting very dark wieldery. He was given venom. Venai. He was given something other than human. And we know from the first half of Iron Flame that cadets being venom is not new. This possibility was introduced to us when Nadine was killed by a cadet who mistakenly thought she was Violet. This cadet is specifically listed as having red eyes. And Violet, CEO of I'm Not Like Other Girls, I'm an Intellect Industries, she mistakenly thinks that the cadet was on some kind of drug, as opposed to being one of the red-eyed dark wielders that she's come to know and love. Violet then proceeds to explain to the whole group, of course, because she's how it is possible that a venom could live in Basgiath College and go basically undetected. Jack then does a very helpful synopsis of how it is that he has existed in the wards this whole time, undetected. The wards do not block all power like the dragons want you to think they do. We can still feed from the ground, still channel enough to survive, enough to fool them. We might not be at full strength, capable of wielding greater magic under your protections, but make no mistake, we are already among you. And now, we're free. Everyone's gagged. Everyone's terrified. There are rats inside Basgiath. And I don't just mean like actual rats, which they definitely have, because it's like a stone old building. Rats get everywhere. Have you been to Paris? Finally, at this point, Zaden's had enough, and he's been doing what I've wanted to do all book, which is knock Jack out. Notice, though, how he does not murk the man, which is great, because at least they have him for questioning. But, like, this is the one time Zaden has shown any form of restraint. And it's against the one man who absolutely deserved to get murked. Like, he's really picking and choosing his moments, you know what I mean? Like, listen, I'm not an advocate for violence, okay? I'm not saying you should kill people. I'm just saying you should kill Jack. Like, you're in a murder school for murderers and he's a big murderer.
murder him. Anyway, Lieutenant Colonel Nolan rocks up and he says that he spent months trying to mend Jack's soul. And Violet suspects that the elixir that they gave to the students to separate them from the dragons was designed to separate Jack from his powers. At this point, they all realize that most of their strongest riders and fighters went to Samara because that's where they think the battle is. This means that Basgiath College, for the most part, is unguarded. And now all of Navarre is unwarded too. They estimate that at most they have 10 hours before the Venin arrive. Half an hour later, everyone at Basgiath is gathered in battle brief. They've managed to get word to Melgren that he needs to hightail his booty back to Basgiath. But General Melgren and his forces won't get to Basgiath until after the horde of Wyvern arrive, which would be scary news if it weren't for the fact that this perfectly sets up a plot point whereby we are losing the war and then the last minute reinforcements save us, turning the tide of the battle. Yeah, I see you, Rebecca. You aren't slick. We find out there's 1,000 Wyvern. Yeah. Yeah, there is. Not 500, 1,000. And currently at Basgiath, they've done a little head count and they've worked out they've got about 100, 200 dragons and riders. Yeah, that's great. It's mega. Wonderful news. Dane then says that he saw in Jack's memories that he set up lures all over campus to attract more Wyvern. So the 1,000 that they already know are coming, there's going to be more waves. Everyone's sat there at this point like, yeah, I am panicking. Yeah, I am, because I'm going to lose my job. At this point, those who remain for big government instruct the infantry, remember the other quadrant at Basgiath that we haven't really talked about at all in the last 2 books. They instruct the infantry to go and destroy the lures that Jack planted across the campus. Professor Devara then instructs the riders to focus on killing the Dark Wielders, because if they go down, the Wyvern that they create go down with them. She says that we need to fight the Dark Wielders in groups. As everyone gets their orders, Violet says that she thinks it's a mistake for them to abandon the Wardstone because they don't know what power it still holds. Basically, she's hinting that there could be a Wardstone resurrection arc, and honestly, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if a stone gets resurrected because everyone else is. Unfortunately for Violet though, General Lilith disagrees and she's like, I don't care, that's a rock. That's a glorified rock for all intensive purposes now. Get on your dragon.
This is wrong, I whisper. We should be defending the Wardstone. The broken one? Sawyer questions quietly. Say it, Rhiannon urges. You have a better chance of living through it, Riddick mutters. I clear my throat. It's a mistake to abandon the Wardstone. My mother levels a disapproving look on me, and the temperature drops a few degrees. Why is it only my daughters speak out of turn? We get it from our mother. Mira snipes in a dry tone, and that lethal look pivots to her. It's a mistake, I push on. We don't know what power remains in the stone, and it was placed in that exact location because it's over the strongest natural flow of power, according to Warwick. It's not my mother looking my way this time. It's General Sorringale. Your opinion is noted. Hope surges in my chest. So you'll assign a squad? Absolutely not. Your opinion, as noted as it is wrong. You have your orders for the morning, Mom says. Riders, find the nearest bed and sleep for as many hours as you can. Most of you who left Basgiath will find your rooms have not been commandeered, and most still contain your bedding. We need you rested to be effective. She looks over the briefing room like it might be the last time she sees us. Every minute we hold out gives us a shot at reinforcements making it back. Every second counts. Make no mistake, we will hold out as long as possible. I glance up at the clock. It's not even 8 yet, which means I can keep my mantra for the next few hours. I will not die today. I can't say the same about tomorrow. So then we kind of jump forward a few hours and it's Violet and Xaden dressing after a few hours of sporadic sleep and some sporadic other things. It's giving quiet before the storm. Xaden kisses a path down my spine, his lips brushing every inch of skin as he laces me into my armor over the cross-body wrap on my left shoulder that stabilizes the aching joint. Keep doing that and you'll be taking this right off, I warn him, glancing down over my shoulder. Was that a threat or a promise? promise. His eyes darken as he stands and ties me in, tucking the laces so they don't come loose. Because I have no problem spending our last quiet minutes this morning tangled up in you. We can't do this. We can't hide away and pretend the war isn't coming for us. Can't ignore that more than a dozen lures haven't been destroyed or even found when just one was enough to lead the Venin to Treason. And we've only found half of what Jack left around the campus. Can't deny that the last reports from the few riders brave enough to stay at the Midland forts along the route from Samara relayed that attack is imminent in the next couple of hours. The gods, do I want to? We can't. Regret saturates the words, and yet I can't stop myself from winding my arms around his neck, no matter how much I would rather lock the door and let the rest of the world burn around us. We can. He lifts his hand to the back of my neck and tugs me closer until our bodies meet from the thigh to breast. Say the word and we'll fly. You could never live with yourself if we abandoned our friends. Maybe. His brow knits for less than a second. So quick I almost miss it as he leans into my space. But I know I can't live without you. So trust me when I say there's a very real, very loud part of me screaming to carry you out of here and fly for Orisha. Basically, they start kissing and they're like, you know what, actually, babe, we got time for one more round. Which, you know what? Fair enough. We'll be quick, I promise, between soul-consuming kisses, flicking open the first button. Quick, he repeats, sliding a hand down my stomach and into my pants. Isn't usually what you beg me for. Someone knocks. We both freeze, panting hard against each other's mouths. No, no, no! Don't stop! If this minute is all we have left, then I want this. Gods, if he would just move his hand a fraction of an inch lower. His eyes search mine, and then he takes my mouth like the outcome of this kiss will decide the battle we're facing. I know you're in there! Rhiannon barks through the door, and the knock changes to a pound. Stop ignoring me before this becomes the most awkward situation known to Navarre. 5 minutes! I beg as Xaden's mouth slides down my neck. Now! A deep, familiar voice demands, and Xaden puts a step between us, muttering a curse under his breath. There's no way. Is there? But just in case there is, my hands fall from Xaden's pants and quickly redo the button on mine before I hop off the desk and rush to the door, sparing a second check that Xaden's clothes are in place too. Disengage your body parts or whatever you're doing. I unlock the door with a flick of my hand and yank it open to find not only every second and third year flyer in our squad, but a few of our first years, including Sloane and Brennan. You came! I left you and Mira here to fight this on your own once before, and I'll never do it again. I knew I'd fucked up as soon as you left, but griffins don't fly as quickly as dragons. He squeezes harder for a second and lets me down. Tell me where I can be of use. Are those flyers? Every head turns down the hall as my mother approaches with 2 of her aides, but her steps falter when her gaze shifts towards my brother. Brennan? I'm not here for you. He dismisses her without another word in her direction. Mateus is going to send the flyers to hunt the lures. They're faster on the ground and better with runes anyway. We are, Kat agrees with a casual shrug, assessing the hallway like she's searching for structural weaknesses, which she probably is. And we don't abandon our drifts. We'll fight. I might not like her, but damn do I respect her. I grab onto Brennan's arms, and a spark of hope flights within my chest. Have you ever encountered something you can't mend? Magic, he answers. I can't mend a relic or anything. Probably not a rune either. If he can do it, we'll just have to hold on long enough for Kodak to arrive. What about a ward stone? We have to guard the chamber. At least let him try. Rhi nods, then turns to my mother, who's still staring at Brennan like he's a hallucination. General Soaringale, 2nd Squad, Flame Section, 4th Wing officially requests permission to guard the airspace above the Wardstone chamber. Mom doesn't take her eyes off Brennan. Granted. It's all going down, girls. It's all going down. But I do have questions, as I so often do. Why are they now not requesting Lieutenant Colonel Nolan to also try and mend the Wardstone with Brennan? 2 menders is faster than 1, as the saying goes. At this point, Violet and her friends are all mentally preparing for a battle which they are assuming most of them are not going to survive. Violet asks Riddick how he's doing, to which comedic relief character Riddick very honestly answers, I'm so scared I'm pretty sure either my heart's going to give out or I'm about to shit myself. Real. Keeping it real, Riddick. Unlike the accent that I've given you, which is slowly deteriorated across the course of this recap. So the time for the battle approaches, and Andarna refuses to leave, which really annoys everyone. They're all very upset about this, but I think they're forgetting that witty monologues are not the only thing that Andarna slays. She also slayed a dragon. Yes, she did. Certified murderer, babe. She should be in baby dragon juvie. Andarna eventually agrees to hide a little bit away from the fight. The besties all have a group hug. It's very sad. It's given the Battle of Hogwarts. Don't freeze. No matter what happens, just keep moving and stay in the air. They can kill you if they drain the ground you're standing on. And then all together they say, no one dies today. Now, unfortunately, as she so often is, Violet is wrong. Someone will, in fact, be dying today. At this point, it starts to rain thanks to General Lilith's signet. That's right, she's making it stormy cloudy so that Violet's signet is at max power so that she can strike down as many venom as possible using as little energy as possible. Side note, I do kind of love how General Lilith and Violet's powers interweave with each other. I think it's a nice way to show their strained but still supportive bond through their signets. It's an example of showing, not telling, about their relationship, which actually I kind of really enjoy. I wish Rebecca had done more kind of subtler versions of this. However, downside to Big Lilith wielding a bunch of rain everywhere is that it's harder for the griffins to fly in anything other than a drizzle. Sorry, at this point, what can the griffins do? Serious question. How did the riders of Basgiath College not question how they hadn't beaten the Griffin Flyers yet? These Griffin Flyers, respectfully, they're not very good at anything, right? Other than runes and sharing. Good for you. But the Griffins are getting ratioed by dragons left, right, and center. Like, how did none of the riders clock on that there might be a bigger threat out there than these overgrown kittens? Do you know what I mean? You're telling me nobody thought that it was suspicious that they were like training you till you died when a Griffin can't fly in the rain? Yeah, I get that you might think, oh, they just take defense of the borders seriously, but you don't think that would be overkill? They can't fly in the rain, babe. You have a dragon. My housemate bought chicken. Oh, sorry guys, chicken break. They essentially come up with the idea that the griffins, because they're practically useless, should guard the ground and ferry the wounded. Excellent use of their lack of ability to do anything else. We then find out that not only did the Flyers come with Brennan, as well as some of the other rebels, Yezania also flew in. Icon, little book lady, we love her. Sawyer tells us that she flew in with Marin, and she's in the archives comparing Warwick's journal for Lyra's to see if she can find out why the wards in Orisha are faulty. Very nice. She's doing her bit. Everyone gets in formation, they've all got their orders, and they're all lining up, waiting for the wyvern to appear. At this point, they're having a little chat. Everyone's scared out of their minds, as they should be. Zaden says to Violet, I love you. This world does not exist for me beyond you. I love you too. Do me a favor and don't die. I don't want to live without you. Which is very cute, but like technically, your lives are tethered, babe. So one goes down, you both go, which means I don't really think that that's a possibility we have to worry about. But I appreciate the sentiment. And then the wyvern approach. Gods, they're everywhere. Their horde larger than any riot I've ever seen. We've grossly underestimated their numbers. And knowing there's another wave following this, there's no chance all of us are getting out of this alive. If any of us do. Violet has her conduit with her, and she manages to use her first lightning strike to take out quite a large amount of the wyvern. However, unfortunately for us, the wyvern quickly realize what she's doing, and they hide under cloud cover for protection. So Violet has to tell Tarn to tell her mother's dragon that her mum needs to move the clouds. Violet essentially manages to solo the first wave of wyvern, with her lightning. Very impressive. But they soon realised that the first wave was like the smallest wave, and most of the wyvern are still coming at them. Terninarch then notes that they probably sent smaller batches of wyvern first to see what tactics the riders would use against them. This way they've sniffed out the weaknesses, and later hordes can adapt and overcome. Ruh-roh. Looks like the Venin, they've also got a battle brief. Things aren't looking good. Onslaught. The next wave hits, and it is awful. Violet is managing to hit her targets though, which is huge, because she's never been able to do that outside of her academic pursuits. However, the heat is kind of building up inside of her, and Terran warns her that she could potentially burn out if she keeps wielding lightning as frequently as she is. I will say, Rebecca's writing for this battle is considerably clearer than it was for the Battle of Resin in 4th Wing. As Violet is on the cusp of burnout, Rebecca has written it in kind of like a slow motion style, and it's literally just an interaction with her squad rearming Riddock, who, by the way, I don't think you know this, is an ice wielder. Very cool. And it's not Rebecca's usual writing style, but I think it really works here. 1. Riddick waves his hands at my right, holding a dagger that's been snapped in two. Shit! If his only remaining blade is broken, I blink when the pieces disappear. He wasn't waving at me. 2. Snapping my head to the left, I find the pieces already in Rhiannon's hands as Fjord dives to where Silslig hovers beneath. Remember, Rhiannon's power, of course, is object summoning. So she can kind of like magically teleport items between places. 3. Fjord flies along Silslig, and Rhiannon tosses the pieces. 4. To Soya's credit, he catches them. 5. Sigale rises to take Fjord's place, and I lock eyes with Zaden only long enough to see that he's unharmed. Blood drips from Sigale's mouth and runs in rain-driven rivulets down the sides of Zaden's face, but I instinctively know it's not his and focus on the imminent threat. 6. Breathe. I have to breathe through the firestorm in my chest or I'll burn out. 7. They're almost on us, and I look down at the ward chamber, where Marb stands watch. 8. Dajalair is frustrated by the unflyable conditions, Tern relays as Fjord rises alongside Atrim. 9. Tell them they're more efficient guarding the courtyard and incoming wounded than struggling with waterlogged wings. They'd be a liability up here right now, not an asset. The dagger changes hands, and Riddick is once again armed. 10. You're beginning to think like... Tern starts. Like Brennan, I suggest, as the Wyvern enter our airspace. Like Tern, Sigale answers.
Honestly, kind of love when Sigale gets a line. She's a silent girl, silent queen, lady of few words. But when she does speak, I am seated. Also, side note, you can really feel the military wife in Rebecca during this chapter entering our airspace. That is so wife of a helicopter pilot coded. Bad news, Tern catches a wyvern and the wyvern's rider jumps on Tern's neck. Yeah, so Violet now has to fight. Great, as she's historically been very good in physical combat.
A flash of blue is all the warning I need to palm an alloy-hilted dagger and drop the conduit against my forearm to reach for my buckle, preparing to release it. I've seen this play out before. I know this role, and this time, I'm not coming away with a stab wound.
Can you level out?
My heart jolts as the Dark Wielder jumps from the wyvern's neck to Tern's, ignoring the menacing roar that vibrates Tern's scales as he holds the wyvern in a death grip.
Stay in your saddle,
He demands, but rolls us horizontally. The Venom grabs a horn and holds on, his eerie, red-rimmed eyes never leaving mine during the maneuver, or the seconds after when we fall into a rapid descent, the wyvern's weight pulling us down. No spider-webbed veins. He's just an Asim. I can handle him.
Yeah, so the Venom have like a hierarchy, I guess. The more Venom you are, the more creepy you look. That's basically it. Darker eyes, spidery black veins. It's given important, scary Dark Wielder. Just like lightly red ringed eyes and no spidery veins. You're just an Asim, babe. You ain't hurting nobody. Least of all, Violet, I will not die today, Sorringale.
I wrench on the leather, but the belt is stuck, and so am I. I flip the dagger to its tip, catching the water-slick blade between my thumb and forefinger. I flick my wrist, firing the dagger towards him when he reaches the spikes between Tern's shoulders. He catches the blade, and pure panic floods my bloodstream as I pull my spear. You're the one he wants. You're Sage? You'll meet the move soon enough, he promises, raising my own blade as he marches towards me.
Yeah, not good. Not good.
A green blur comes at us from the right, and we both look as Rhiannon jumps from Furge to Tern, landing in front of my saddle in a crouch.
Uh-oh. Rhiannon's arrived. And we're all sat here thinking at this point, nobody on this board has died yet. And to be honest, at this point, I would be completely transparent. I was not really thinking that Rhiannon was going to die. You know why? She's our token WLW. Can't kill off the only lesbian. Well, I mean, she's not a lesbian. She might be bisexual. I'm not 100% sure. But one thing for sure, she's queer. And you can't kill off the gays. You just can't.
No. This is too familiar. Losing Liam was... I can't lose Rhi. I just can't. She surges forward and the wyvern screams, a rate of descent so fast that blood appears to fall upward. I yank on my belt again, but the leather is so swollen with rain, wedged tight, and I watch, my heart launching into my throat as she engages the Dark Wielder in a series of moves that would have had me on the mat.
Basically, Rhiannon and Violet have like a silent communication type beat, because they are, of course, besties. And Rhiannon fights, and then Violet and Tern agree to roll at a specific time. And Rhiannon ducks, and the venom is exposed, and Violet manages to chuck a dagger into his chest. It's beautiful. Honestly, the ballet wishes they were this choreographed. Do you know what I mean? Violet's upset with Rhiannon. She's like, You reckless, irresponsible. You're welcome. Violet and Rhiannon have a little hug.
Fix your saddle. I'll retrieve the dagger from the ground. She stands, then gives me a flash of a smile before jumping from Taryn's shoulder. I track her fall, breathing a sigh of relief when she lands effortlessly on Fierge. My saddle is stuck, I tell Taryn as we climb back to the battle.
Good. Maybe you'll stay in it. Bro is pissed. He's not chuffed. He's not chuffed. He's like, how many times have I told you, Silver One? Sit your ass down. We find out at this point that Melgrin and reinforcements are only 10 minutes out. That's right, we've got 10 minutes until the gang's back together. Before Violet rejoins the main conflict, she does a quick scan to see who's around. She sees that Xaden and Sigale are outnumbered, but Taryn is like, babe, if Sigale wants help, trust me, she'll ask for it. You know, you should focus on yourself. Reminding us once again, they are a dynamic duo. Violet then does a little check-in on our favourite baby juvenile delinquent.
And Darna, I reach out, my gaze sweeping the blurred mountainside as we fly upward. I'm quite annoyingly safe and hidden, she responds.
Atrum!
Taryn bellows and my stomach sinks. Riddoch! Taryn sweeps right, avoiding the plummeting body of a wyvern. But there's another above us with its teeth locked onto Atrum's hindquarters and 3 more closing in for the kill.
Atrum, of course, is Riddick's dragon, and from that description, we can safely assess that things are not going well.
Sawyer and Silsleigh fly from the opposite side of our sector, tracking to intercept at the same time, but everyone else is beneath us. I sheath my dagger at my hip, then load the crossbow and strap that at my thigh as we surge upwards. Riddick's doing all he can from Atrum's back to dislodge the wyvern, stabbing his sword into its snout, but the damn thing won't let go. Silsleigh gets there first, slashing out at the wyvern with his sword tail and cutting into a foreleg. When it doesn't let go, he pivots to close his jaw over its neck, but unlike Taryn, he isn't strong enough to snap a neck with a bite and loses precious seconds, leaving himself exposed to the remaining pair of wyvern. We're not gonna make it in time. The pair changes course, veering from Atrum at the last second and aiming for Silsleigh. We're almost there, but everything happens so fast that it's as if the rest of the world slows down. In one heartbeat, the closest wyvern opens its jaws. In the second, it blasts green fire across Silsleigh and Sawyer dives backward out of the seat, narrowly avoiding being burned to death and rolling down Silsleigh's spine with a smoking boot. In the third, it completes its assault, snapping at Silsleigh's exposed side. Sawyer kicks at the gaping jaws to save his dragon from the next bite, but in the next, he takes it himself, his leg disappearing between the wyvern's massive teeth. Sawyer! Riddick yells. Taryn's weight shifts, and I know he's chosen an angle of attack and is about to dive, but in this position, there's only time to save Sawyer or Silsleigh, not both. Sawyer bellows in pain as the wyvern half drags him off Silsleigh. There's nothing left below Sawyer's knee. He's losing blood and his grip. No, I'm not going to stand by and watch another one of my friends die. I refuse. I slice through the leather strap of my belt as Taryn dips his right wing, giving me the perfect angle for 1 single second. Forgive me. Don't you dare! Kill the other one quickly for both our sakes. I'm already moving, sheathing my dagger and lunging from the saddle, gaining 1, 2, 3 running steps before I leap. And Darna, Zaden, my sister, Brennan, they all flash through my mind as my arms swing through the fall, finding only air. But it's my mother's face I see in my mind when I land on Atrum's back, the soles of my boots finding purchase at the edge of one of his spine scales. Silver One! How's that for a running landing? Holy shit, I made it!
It is interesting to note that when Violet is trying to save Sawyer, she looks at Sawyer's dragon and is basically like, bro, I need you to let me on you so that I can free Sawyer. And she prays to Dunn that Sawyer's dragon understands what she's trying to communicate and doesn't move. Because if he moves, Violet is gonna go slip and slide to her death, basically. Good news, dragon understands. How bloody convenient. Doesn't move. Violet kicks the wyvern in the face. Yes, she does. It's giving girl boss. Taryn bites a wyvern. He's gone. Sawyer needs a healer right now. He is bleeding out. Yeah, he is.
Where are you? I asked Taryn as Sawyer's eyes meet mine in double take.
Where I'm supposed to be, unlike you. She then grabs Sawyer and then actually starts intentionally slip and sliding down Sawyer's dragon's back.
Hold on! I shout as we slide over countless red scales, seconds away from the edge. Now do me a favor. Which would be? Taryn asks, already flying toward us. Silver One! Sawyer's arms close around me as we tumble off Silsleigh's back and fall into open air. Catch me.
Yeah, so Violet has saved Sawyer by grabbing him and just jumping off the dragon's back. Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. That was one of the plans of all time. Violet was basically like, hey, Sawyer, I know you got a lot on right now. You're bleeding to death because you've just lost your leg. But what if I give you another thing to worry about? Anyway, good news is Taryn does, of course, catch Violet and Sawyer. They managed to get the wyvern off of the dragons and everyone is safe. Well, apart from Sawyer, because a wyvern just bone apple teethed his leg, so I imagine he's had better days. Violet then drops Sawyer off with the healers, and she essentially just wills him to live. She's like, remember when we said we're not gonna die today? Yeah, don't do that.
You have to wake up. Open your eyes. Please. Please, Sawyer. Please. We said we'd all live until graduation, remember? I remember. Sawyer whispers, his eyes fluttering open.
Oh, thank the gods! What is interesting here is right before Violet pleads with Sawyer not to die, which I don't know why we hadn't considered doing that with Liam, really. Maybe if Violet had just been like, hey, babe, please don't do that. He'd been like, oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, my bad. Oh, good thing you said that, because I was thinking about dying. Yeah, I was.
She says, you can't have him, I tell Malik, shifting to kneel in the scarlet snow. You took Liam. You may not have Sawyer.
Interesting. Miss Gurley's talking to the god of death. Again, she's asking for a favor from a god. Interesting. Especially when Sawyer doesn't die. Now, the one thing I will say about this interaction, not that I'm pro-maiming, right? Just get that out of the way. But like, it is nice to see someone facing a consequence of a battle that a mender, I'm assuming, can't fix. Because I have been saying, historically, you look at my track record, it is statistically unlikely, if not impossible, that this many people are having this many fights, and the only thing that ever happens is they either are completely healthy afterwards, or they die. Because I get a few broken bones, right? But the menders can fix those, so we don't really see any consequences to that. But apparently, I'm assuming from this, menders can't fix when you've had a leg amputated non-consensually. So mending has limits, can't grow back body parts. So can someone tell me how everyone seems to have all their limbs? It's just not possible, babe. So don't get me wrong, very happy that someone finally faced an actual consequence for being put in a deadly situation, and that consequence wasn't death. However, because of course I can't just be happy with something in this book, I do think that it is a little bit obvious that it was going to be Sawyer. One, because as we've established, Riddick can't die. I'll stop reading the series if he dies, and I think Miss Becky knows this at this point, which is why she shot him earlier and then got him fixed, remember that? He almost died already. She's not going to actually kill him off now, so she had to try and kill someone else off. It wasn't going to be Ree, because she's walla-wah, so it had to be the slightly less funny version of Riddick, who's straight. And who, by the way, is crushing on the only canonically disabled character in this story. So you've given the man who had a crush on our only deaf character a disability as well. That's a bit on the nose. Is it not? Sorry. God forbid someone without a disability wants to date someone with a disability, you know what I mean? Taryn then alerts Violet that Brother Brennan, has mended the ward stone. But whilst the stone is now intact, repairing the wards is a lot more difficult. And I'll be honest, the situation, it's not looking hopeful. No, everyone's a bit like, why did I just spend my time and resources fixing a stone? Everyone's dying, and I've just been sat here, hands on a stone. Yeah. Just like for a minute, imagine you don't know who this man is. You're flying, your squad are dying, okay? Death is on your doorstep, knocking. And you look down and you see this random man with a big ass dragon, and he's just like, just chilling with a broken stone, just like, why is that man cuddling a rock? We're dying out here. At this point, Catriona, famous flyer, famously third in line for the Poramish throne, and Marin come in, and Kat hits Violet with the line, "You look like shit." Like, really? You're literally all about to die, and you can't be a girl's girl for like half a minute, babe? Although I do have to kind of take that back, because in the next line she says, "I heard what you did up there. Well, Kira saw and she told me. That took guts. You would have done the same. Exhaustion sweeps in, my shoulders drooping as adrenaline fades. I would have run faster." She slips one of her alloy hilted daggers free and hands it to me. "Looks like you're missing one."
I have another. Thank you. I take it like the peace offering it is. I'll look after Soya, she promises as she stands. And don't you dare thank me for that, she calls back over her shoulder, walking toward the southwest tower without another word.
At this point, Violet and Taryn are having a little chat about how the things are going. They're on the last wave of Wyvern. They are holding the last wave back. And your mother, behind you! I stumble to my feet and whip around to face the cliff. And the Venin, who stands about 20 feet away. My stomach twists and my grip tightens around the dagger Cat left me. Cat! I don't want to draw attention to the retreating flyer if the Venin doesn't already see her. There's no point in running, the Dark Wielder says, walking forward slowly, as if I'm no more of a threat than a butterfly. We both know I'll drain the very ground underneath you, and then this will all have been for nothing. She throws her arms out, gesturing to the mayhem around us. Soaring Gale! Cat yells, and I hear the sloshing sound of her running toward me. Run, Cat! I shout, glancing up at Taryn and spotting him mid-dive about a minute out, but the footsteps don't slow. The Dark Wielder's eyes flare as she spots Cat, and she drops to a knee, splaying her hand over the icy ground. Stop! I yell, my heart lurching into my throat and lodging there. Flicking my wrist, I grasp the conduit in my left hand and lift my right, dagger and all, throwing open the doors to Taryn's power I'd never fully closed. Slush melts at my feet and steam lifts from my skin as Cat reaches my sides. Shut up! She pulls a dagger from her thigh sheath. Oh, you are a powerful one, aren't you? The lightning wielder. Thunder booms in the cloud above us as energy gathers in my veins. Her, I don't care about. She glances at Cat. But you... I'm under orders not to kill, so let's not make this difficult. Me? What the hell? She takes a step forward and I release a strike, hitting the ground right in front of her, stopping her in her tracks. You'll be so much fun for him to wield, and I'll be his favorite for delivering you. I'll be more than just Nassim soon. I'll be given the veil when this is over. Delivering me? You can kill her at any time now, Cat reminds me, her gaze locked on the Dark Wielder. I want to know what the hell she means about delivering me. The fight continues. Violet basically finds out that the Venin are under orders to try and capture her, specifically. Because in case you forgot, she is the chosen one. The reason why they want her is because the Sage, Chief Venin, wants to use her as a weapon because she is, of course, the first lightning wielder in like 100 years. It will be me! Me! Cat's doing this, heightening the woman's greed, spinning her out in her own emotions. I have to admit, it's a pretty badass ability when she's not using it on me. At this point, another Venin appears. Violet strikes the original Venin and kills her. Very good. Bad news is, Violet has just used so much of her power over the course of the last hour, the conduit disintegrates. Yeah, it's almost like I told you to start making that of a more reliable material. Yeah, things aren't looking good at this point because there is a Venin approaching and Violet famously needs that little Wii remote to be able to hit anything, so... Everyone starts panicking. Stay calm, Taryn orders, nearly on us but not close enough. I'm on my way, Zaden shouts as the Venin steps over the body of his counterpart like she's a feature of the landscape and continues toward me. They won't make it in time. I won't either, which means I've killed us all. But Indarna can live. She just has to hold on, has to choose to survive. He's almost here, so let's move this along, shall we? The Dark Wielder says, less than a dozen feet away now. A shape moves in the cliff behind the Dark Wielder. No. Not a shape, part of the cliff itself. A giant boulder? A boulder with slivers of golden eyes. It springs forward from the cliff like a projectile, expanding, changing colors, sprouting wings and claws, and black scales. Yeah, that's right. Just as Violet's about to get absolutely rocked by a Dark Wielder, Indarna appears, having camouflaged herself as a boulder? And spoiler, she can now breathe fire. And Dana roasts the Dark Wielder and then rips his head off. It's giving girl boss. Yeah, it is. I bet she runs the baby dragon juvie that she goes to. Obviously, everyone's very happy because Catriona, third in line for the Poramish throne, is now not dead. But more importantly, Violet, I never get anything wrong, Sorringale is also not dead. Violet has a little chat with Indana and is like, babe, that was like some really good hiding you did there. And Indana just hits her with a, told you I could hide. Yeah, babe, there's a difference between hide and seek and literally camouflaging yourself perfectly as a rock. we start getting the feeling that maybe Indana has some secrets, potentially, that she has not shared with the class. Her and Zaden Ryerson would be besties, that's for sure. As the final wave of Wyvern wait to approach, and this final wave, by the way, contains the Sage, Big Chief Venin, Kat tells Violet to instruct her mother to call off the rain because Violet is like burnt out. She can't wield any more lightning right now anyway, especially without the conduit. And Kat says that the Griffin Flyers have more experience with battling the Wyvern than the Riders do. So at this point, the Griffins are better off being in the air. Then Garbos, who would definitely have a booktok account, Yesenia appears. She's running, which is rare because famously scribes can't run. Yesenia then tells Violet that the main difference between Warwick's journal and Lyra's journal is that Lyra's journal says that in order to power up the Wardstone, it needs 7, not 6 dragons. The breath of life of the 7 combined and set the stone ablaze in an iron flame. Which basically means that the only difference between Warwick's journal and Lyra's journal is that Warwick said the 6 and the 1, and Lyra said 7. Now forgive me, because I'm not a scribe. Okay, so maybe I'm thinking above my quadrant here. But like, is 6 and 1 not 7? We couldn't have maybe theorized that ourselves? That maybe the breath of the 6 and the 1 is 7. Anyway, it takes big brain Yesenia to figure this out. Meanwhile, General Melgren arrives. Things are looking good. The reinforcements are here. And General Melgren wants everyone to move the fight to the Vale. He thinks that this will distract the Horde because of the natural power in the Vale. At this point, though, they don't really have time to like discuss this because Chief Venin is on his way. Things are once more looking dire, even despite the reinforcements. And Violet at this point, because she is, of course, famously smarter than everyone, she's like, I know better. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try and raise the wards. Yes, I am. Essentially, Violet has clocked that whilst everyone believes that there are only 6 breeds of dragon, our little baby criminal over here might be a secret 7th forgotten breed of dragon. Wow. What gave it away, Violet? Was it the fact that she somehow camouflaged as a rock? Honestly, anyone would be asking questions after that. Xaden then tells General Melgren, Lilith, and Violet that he's going to go and buy time so that Violet can raise the wards. They won't attack. Not yet. They're still waiting. What the for? Melgren snaps. Me. Okay, Zaden. Zaden main character Ryerson. Why on earth would they be waiting for Zaden? Turns out, apparently, one of the teacher Venin is a bit like everyone else reading this book and is low-key obsessed with Zaden Ryerson. And apparently, it's the same one who was at Resson. And this particular Venin thought that Zaden, Violet, and co would all go to Samara because they're honorable and they wanted to do the honorable thing and answer Melgren's call for help. So it turns out like Melgren wasn't bluffing about there being a battle at Samara because that's the obvious place where they'd fight. Naturally, we all know that it was the Venin who had the big bluff because they were like only fake attacking Samara really in order to try and draw out the people in Orisha, and all of the wards were going to go down. So they were kind of launching like a joint attack at Basgiath and at Samara. And no matter whether Violet and Zaden went to Basgiath or Samara, they wouldn't be safe because the wards wouldn't be up anyway. So Big Venin, teacher guy, just kind of bet that they'd go to Samara because that's where Melgren asked them to help with, because Basgiath was supposed to be a low-key little number. You know, it was supposed to be like a quiet attack. There wasn't supposed to be a big battle at Basgiath. They were supposed to win. But then, of course, Brainiac Violet over here spoiled and foiled their plans. Do you reckon the Venin sat there like, and I would have gotten away with it too if it were for you meddling kids? Anyway, Violet then talks to Indana via the bond, and Indana kind of confirms that there are 7 types of dragon. She is not a black dragon. She's actually just a completely different type of dragon altogether. Enter fan theory. There are many people who theorize that Indana might be a royal dragon, or like the last of a particular brand of dragon, shall we say. She's like a very rare Chanel, an Hermes, if you will. And essentially, because she's the only one left of this breed of dragon, she is then technically the leader of her den, or like House of Dragon, House of the Dragon reference. And so she has more power in the Empyrean than a typical adolescent would, which is why she keeps getting away with all her little sneaky tricks. Anyway, the generals agree with Violet trying to raise the Wardstone. They're like, okay, fine, Miss Brainiac over here clearly knows what she's doing. Zaden goes to try and distract the Venin because they're waiting for him to buy Violet the time to save the Wardstone. They have a very cute little moment where they're like, oh yeah, don't die, babes. And she's like, yeah, sure. You also don't die though. And he's like, yeah, again, we've already been through this. If one of you goes, you both go. So Don't know why we keep having this conversation. Anyway, so Violet's like, great, I know how to fix the ward stone. Generals are in agreement, like, sure, you try and do your thing. Zaden's gonna go distract them. Problem is, because it's always a problem, if Violet uses Indarna to reactivate this ward stone, she then can't do it for the ward stone in Orisha. Apparently, it's like a 1 dragon per ward stone type deal. Right. And the issue with that is, of course, there's only 1 Indarna. We don't have another one. So if they activate the ward stone at Basgiath, they cannot permanently activate the ward stone at Orisha. Thankfully for us this time, Violet doesn't pontificate on this moral dilemma for 7 business days. She's like, you know what, we are probably all gonna die, like right now, if I don't do this, so I'm just gonna do it. Bad news is, she can't use Terran to activate this wardstone because he already activated the wardstone at Orisha, so she needs a different black dragon. If only another character in this book had a black dragon. Yeah, she has to go and ask General Melgren to borrow his dragon. Actually, it's even funnier than that. Violet doesn't even go up to General Melgren. She dead ass walks up to the biggest dragon on the continent and is just like, what's up, Kodak? I'm Violet, nice to meet you. I need to talk to you. They're all sat there thinking she's hit her bloody head. Zaden starts panicking. He's like, holy f***, Violet, you know what you're doing? Zaden's voice is getting more and more annoying as this goes on, sorry. Zaden doesn't understand why Violet needs Kodak to turn on the wardstone, because she already has Indarna, and Indarna is a black dragon. Which, like, Zaden babes, you may be king of Tyrandor, you may be the only shadow wielder in a century, you may be leader of a rebellion, you may have 2 signets, but the one thing you'll never be is the smartest tool in the shed. That's right. That goes to Violet, sorry, Gale. And Violet, by the way, is keeping the fact that Indarna is a 7th breed of dragon a secret for Indarna's safety. So she doesn't tell anyone, which is fair enough. She's got that dragon loyalty. Indarna tells Violet,
I waited 650 years to hatch. Waited until your 18th summer, when I heard our elders talking of the weakling daughter of their general. The girl forecasted to become head of the scribes, and I knew you would have the mind of a scribe and the heart of a writer. You would be mine.
Now this does pose some questions. Number 1, does this technically mean that Indarna is 650 years old? Now, you could say no, because granted, she wasn't technically born, and I'm not trying to get into the semantics of a pro-life argument, but the thing is, she was like sentient. Girl was making analytical decisions. She was processing information that she could hear, and she was like calculating, scheming, making plans 650 years in advance. I'll be honest, she came ready for the quiz. She did, yeah. Now, this opens us up to the implication that Indarna has just been like sat in an egg for 650 years, which is so mind-numbingly boring that I kind of get why she's being like a bitchy adolescent. I also would be really pissed off if I'd been trapped in an egg for 650 years. But I do think it's worth noting that the dragons were discussing how much of a wet white Violet was. That's funny. Also, notice how no one says that Violet has a disability. They just call her weak. Again, this goes to my point that I don't believe that Violet is canonically disabled. She just has some of the symptoms of a disability that exists in the real world. But I don't know, are we supposed to believe that maybe this disability exists, but it isn't diagnosed in this world? I'm just a bit confused by the lore, which I think is part of the reason why most readers don't realize that Violet is supposed to be written as a character with a disability, because it's not canonically acknowledge that what she has is a disability. And you don't have to acknowledge a disability with a label for it to still exist. You can have a disability without a diagnosis and you very much still have the disability. But I think when you're trying to communicate disability to readers, just consistently calling your character weak when there's already a trope for FMCs being weak that exists doesn't differentiate her at all, and I think that's confusing. Of course, you're welcome to have your own opinions on that, but I just don't really, I feel like there could have been more. She couldn't have had a sickness. Like, you couldn't have said she had like slippy bone sickness and that's a real diagnosis, that's a real like disability within the world. You couldn't have said that. I'm confused. I'm sure there's a reasoning for it, but I'm still confused. Anyway, Violet runs to the wardstone and she asks any riders that they can spare to come because they need to imbue the wardstone with power. It's not just the breath of the 7 dragons. She needs the riders to come and help. Bad news, not many people can come to the wardstone because they are fighting, famously. Out of all the riders that gather at the wardstone, you've got like Brennan, Sloane, Arik, Violet, and like a couple of other people, I think. And Violet's realizing that she has to be the one to put power into the ward because she is the most powerful signet. Unfortunately, Violet then very quickly realizes that the cost of imbuing the stone is her life. And when she realizes that Zaden is losing his fight with the venom, she thinks, this is it. I'm going to sacrifice myself to try and save Zaden. And you may think this is a bit stupid of a plan, because if she's trying to save him, she should probably not die, given the whole interconnected lives thing. But Violet reckons there's a chance that if she dies, Terran will still live. Violet starts burning out because she's using too much energy to put in the wardstone. And she essentially says, I'm so sorry to Terran because he shouldn't have to lose 2 riders to burnout. Because remember, Terran's previous rider was Nowlin, and he allegedly burned out and died after trying to heal Brennan. At this point, Big General Lilith arrives. She sees their daughter burning out, and she's asking everyone else what their signets are, and no one else can do anything really, because Aric's there, he's not even got a signet yet. And then you've got Sloane, who is a siphon. Terran is begging her to stop. He's saying, you will cease. And she does not, famously. You must save yourself. I chose you not as my next, but as my last. And should you fall, then I will follow. No, steam rises from my skin. Let go! And Darna pleads, and the rush of air in the chamber paired with the slight tremble of the ground tells me she's landed. And then, right as Violet is about to burn out and go and, meet up with her dad, General Lilith kicks her in the face. Mother of the year. But actually, kind of not a joke this time. Because then, General Lilith instructs Sloane to siphon Lilith and her dragon's power and life force into the wardstone. That's right, General Lilith has decided to go out with a bang. No! I fight Aric's arms as my chest threatens to collapse, to crumple in on my heart. Mum blinks in and out of my vision. Blurry 1 second, then clear. I'm so sorry. Aric whispers, you're everything we dreamed you'd be. Mum says quietly, her skin paling even as Sloane's flesh is scarlet. All 3 of you. She looks down at Brennan, and I'll get to see him soon. Our father. My eyes flare as I struggle to break free from Aric. Don't. Brennan begs, shaking his head. Don't do this. He staggers to his feet, stumbling her direction, but he doesn't get far before falling. Live well. Her head bobs and her eyes roll as her skin takes on a waxy pallor that's an obscene contrast to her flight leathers as her chest rises and falls slower in a stuttered, incomplete breath. Brennan crawls to her. Footsteps sound behind me, coming at us at a run. No! I scream, tearing my throat, ripping into my soul. A distinct, hair-raising hum emanates from the wardstone as Mum falls forward into Brennan's arms. Sloane staggers backward, staring at her palms like they belong to someone else, and Aric finally lets me go. I fly forward, hitting my knees in front of where Brennan sits with Mum's body draped across his lap, his hands trembling as he reaches for her face. My fingers find her neck, but there's no pulse, no heat. No life. The only beat I hear are bootsteps racing into the chamber. She's gone. Mom. Brennan whispers, his face crumpling as he looks down at her. What did you do? Mira drops to her knees and pulls Mum's body from Brennan, her hands furiously seeking what mine just had. Any sign of a heartbeat. Mom! She shakes her violently, but Mum's head rolls onto her shoulder. What did you do? Mira yells again, the full force of her wrath turned on Brennan. Zaden needs you, Andarna says, but I can't move. Taryn and Sigil wait with him. When Andarna moves, my gaze wanders up the mended wardstone to the iron flame that burns black on top. It's all that's left of my mother. Yeah, General Lilith Sorringale? She's dead. Didn't really care. I think General Lilith was written in such a way that she was such an unlikable character that the only way she could have even slightly a redemption arc that would make readers kind of like her enough to care about her would be to kill her and therefore somehow prove through her sacrifice that she was a good mum all along. And I'm just gonna say it, if dying is the best thing you can do for your children, probably not been a great mum. There was so much we could have done prior to this moment, General Lilith, to help your children out. And did you? Nuh-uh. So yeah, General Lilith is dead, the wards are up, but the vibes are down. On a side note, do find it quite funny that the only big character death that we get in this entire book, this very long book, is General Lilith. And she doesn't even die in the big war that's going on. She dies to a stone. That is tragic. Anyway, with the wards raised, the Wyvern fall, and the remaining venom can no longer channel. It's looking like we've won the battle, babe. So yeah, in a shocking turn of events that no one anticipated, Silver One has done it again. We've won the battle for Basgiath. Yay, we all scream, everything's happy and we've won. And nothing could ever go wrong. Right, Rebecca? Immediately after, Violet runs out of the Wardstone chamber and she sees that everyone in her squad is alive, including Sawyer, who, although he is down one leg, is up a potential girlfriend, because Yesenia, well, she loves a man who bled for his country. I mean, continent. I mean, state? I'll be honest, I'm a bit confused at this point. Ree then tells Violet that the minute the wards came up, all of the wyvern fell, and the remaining venin hightailed and ran. Yeah, little rats, they're scattering. They're afraid. And the leadership of big government is now trying to hunt down the remaining venin. It's all looking very good. Oh, yeah, Violet then tells everyone that her mum died. And we're all, like, pretending to be sad about it. As if she wasn't, like, in charge of the war college that almost killed everyone. But there we are. Violet knows that Xaden is thankfully alive, and Indarna tells her that she needs to go and see Terran and Sigale and Zaden. So Violet goes over, and she sees that Terran and Sigale are standing kind of in front of Zaden, and Zaden is behind them looking out over, like, a fast-moving river. You got the visuals? You locked in?
What happened? I killed him. His voice is flat, and so is his expression. Snapped whatever tether he had on me and killed him. His body fell into the ravine. Now I keep watching the river like it's going to pop back up, even though I know he's miles downstream by now. I'm sorry I wasn't here. I reach for his hand, but he tugs it away. I'm not. You saved us both. My mother saved us. My voice cracks. She had Sloan siphon Emster's power and both their life energies into the Warstone. She's gone. His eyes slide closed. I'm so fucking sorry. She killed your father. Why would you be sorry? I swipe another tear that leaks out. I didn't want her dead, he says softly. I could never want anyone you love dead. Silence falls over us. And it's not the comfortable kind. Malgrim wants us to come back, I throw out, looking for some reaction. Any reaction. Then we come back. He nods. Arisha's wards are already weakening, and these are intact, which you'll explain to me later, right? His gaze flicks sideways at me, but quickly leaves, like I'm painful to look at. I'll explain, I promise. Good. He nods. It's safer for you here. This is where we should be. He drags in a shaky breath, then laughs. You won't be as scared under the full wards. My brow furrows. I just fought an entire wyvern army, dark wielders, and raised wards, losing my mother in the process. Please, do tell me what could possibly be scarier than that. You love me, he whispers. You know I do. I grab hold of his hand. What's out there that I should be scared of, Xaden? What did he tell you? What did you see? What could he know that has him this shaken? Slowly, he drags his gaze up my body, and it feels like it takes years for him to just look at me. When he does, I gasp, my hand tightening on his in reflex. No. That single word is all I think, feel, scream internally as I stare up at the man I'm hopelessly in love with. Me, he whispers. A faint, almost indistinguishable ring emanating from his gold-flecked onyx eyes. You should be scared of me.
That's right, girls. Not only is he leader of the Revolution Ryerson, not only is he son of the leader of the Revolution Ryerson, not only is he the most powerful shadow wielder in a century, not only is he also king of Tyrandor, not only is he one of the few people that has 2 signets, he is now also a venin. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Yeah, just when you thought this man couldn't add anything else to his resume, he's gone and done it. He's now a venin. Congratulations, Xaden Ryerson. You've smashed it. Now, that is kind of the end of the book. And I say kind of because it's the end of Violet's POV in this book. Yes, there is more. But this time, the more is in the form of a Xaden POV. This chapter starts with Xaden recounting things that have already happened. And it's weird because what's already happened is an exact replica of the nightmare that we saw Violet have earlier in the book. Essentially, the only difference between Violet's reoccurring nightmare, where the sage kind of has her by the throat and is like, you're going to turn for love, and she's like, no, and Xaden's recollection of what happened between him and the venin when he actually turned venin, is that in this version, the venin says to him, you're too tired to win right now, which is true because Xaden's close to burning out, and if you don't turn venin to kill me right now, Violet is going to burn herself out on the wardstone, trying to put the wards up to save your life, because she knows that you're about to die and I'm about to kill you. So kind of puts Xaden between a rock and a hard place, or a wardstone in a hard place. And Xaden's like, well, I'm going to do the maths here real quick. Venin's going to kill me, and in trying to save me, Violet's going to kill herself. So I have to turn venin, kill that venin, so that Violet doesn't kill herself trying to burn out on the wardstone. Yeah, I am going to turn for love, actually. Good shout, good call. Oh, and by the way, the venin says, I'm not a sage, I'm a general. which is concerning. They've got military ranking systems, guys. They're organized. So Zaden decides to put his hand to the ground and he feels all this power underneath it. And then Sigale says, no, I chose you. You can't become a Venin. And Zaden says, but Violet chose me too. Okay, that one got me. That one got me. It's the heartbreak that Sigale has when she realizes that Zaden has turned Venin for Violet, forsaking their bond, because dragons do not bond to Venin. So Sigale's obviously a bit upset with Zaden. And we find this out, by the way, because once Zaden is done with his flashback, he wakes up. Turns out he was dreaming about something that just happened. And we find out that Sigale has locked him out of talking to her since it happened. She's very upset and very betrayed. We also find out when he wakes up in bed next to Violet, having had this kind of dream flashback of what happened, that Violet is led next to him, her arm bent as though reaching out for me, even in her dreams. Surely that won't be important later. Anyway, in this little bonus chapter, Zaden goes to basically square up with Jack of MTV Music Award fame, and Zaden wants to know what the cure to the Venin is. He's like, listen, I've made a boo-boo. I slipped, tumbled, and sucked the power from the earth, accidentally became a dark wielder. I need to know how I can undo that. And Jack is like, sir, there is no cure, babe. Cures are for diseases. What we have is power. And that, dear Ryerson, isn't curable. It's enviable. Bullshit. There's a way to get out of this. I seethe. His smile grows even wider. Oh no. There's no cure. You can never give back what's taken. You'll only hunger for more. I'd rather die than become one of you. Fear flavors the words because I feel it. The power beneath the college. The craving to sate the need for it. And yet, you just did. Jack laughs, and the sound curdles my blood. All this time, you've been convincing everyone you're the hero, and now you'll be the villain, especially in her story. Welcome to our fucked up family. I guess we're brothers now. And that is the last line of the book. She gave it to Jack Bloody Barlow.
What the hell is this?
Okay. Story over. What did we think? Did we enjoy that? Was that worth an extra 5 hours of your life? I don't know. You let me know in the comments down below. I'm now going to get into my little theories and thoughts section, so feel free to fall down the rabbit hole with me. So firstly, in the last chapter, it's Zaden that says he recognizes the scene where the sage is holding him up and he turns Venin from a reoccurring nightmare. It's a little bit weird. It's all very confusing. I don't necessarily feel like that whole situation was super clear. Honestly, I think it would have been very clever if it weren't for the fact that I was stood there staring at the page wondering if Miss Becky had gotten Zaden and Violet's dreams mixed up. I was like, this is a Zaden POV chapter. What's he doing in Violet's dream? Then realised it wasn't a dream, but it was reality. But then realised, how is Violet dreaming about something that hadn't happened yet? And then it does happen, and then it happens almost exactly as she dreamed it. I was like, can Violet see the future? Things have gotten very confusing. And then I sat there and I was like, oh, maybe it's because of the four-way dragon suicide pact thing. Turns out it was never Violet's dream. It was Zaden's nightmare all along, not Violet's. Huh? And then I was like, even if you're in a four-way dragon suicide pact, I don't think you have identical dreams. So then I started digging because word on the street, and by that I mean on the internet, is that Rebecca Yarros confirmed that all the talk of Violet potentially having a second signet is true, and she does, and it's on the page in Iron Flame, which means that Miss Violet used her second signet at some point in this book. Violet gets a second signet, of course, because of her bond with Andarna. It's worth pointing out, the same Andarna who was famously in a dreamless sleep for the majority of this book. The same Andarna who was asleep for 650 years and yet somehow had the insider tea on everyone's business and used that information to know when to hatch. Hence the iconic, I've been waiting 650 years for you, babes. Outside of that, we have a few mentions of Violet dreaming. We've got one on chapter 20, 21, 22, 28, 29, and 40. Some of those examples. Shit, that was not the right thing to say, but I'm exhausted. There's no point trying to sleep when I can't quit dreaming about Resin. If she dies, you will summon the wrath of not only General Sorengale, but General Melgren,
Her signet is the weapon generals dream of in this war. His hand slides to the base of my neck, and his gaze turns serious. Do you have nightmares about Resin? Is that why you can't sleep? I dream of a million different ways we could have lost. Sometimes I dream it's Imogen who dies, or Garrick, or you. Those are the ones that make it impossible to sleep after. Obviously, included in those references to dreaming are the reoccurring nightmare sequences that I initially didn't tell you about, then told you about. Sorry, I'm an unreliable narrator. What can I say? The interesting thing to point out about that reoccurring nightmare dream, she is led in bed next to Zaden, and she hits us with the line, just a dream, just a dream, just a dream. The question is, Violet, whose dream? Yeah, if you haven't guessed it, my bet is that Violet Sorrengail is a dreamwalker. Now at this point, because it took me 3 to 4 business months to get this video out, Onyx Storm has been released. So many of the girlies watching this will already know what Violet's second signet is. However, I have not read anything to do with Onyx Storm. I've not engaged with anything to do with Onyx Storm, and therefore I don't know what Violet Sorrengail's second signet is. So although this is my best theory, I've also compiled other theories that I think have merit. Second signet theory number 2, Violet is a truthsayer. Cast your mind back to that poor girl that got like 4 lines of dialogue before Zaden, you know, did the knife in the neck thing, a classic Zaden move. Famously, truth and knowledge very important to Miss Violet Sorrengail, and as we know, signets often manifest as what a rider needs most. And I'll be honest, there's not much more this woman yaps about than needing the truth. There's also the fact that Zaden says that he can't lie to her, and he will tell her anything she wants to know, she just has to ask. And he kind of said that this is because he wants to make sure she's ready to accept whatever answer he gives her, but also, it would be an excellent cover if Violet is a truthsayer and Zaden knows it but Violet doesn't. Because like, why else is he constantly saying, I'll tell you the truth, just ask? Is it because she can tell when people are lying? So obviously, he would say the truth to her and she would know and trust that that was the truth because she's a truthsayer. She just doesn't know it. Other examples that kind of support this throughout the book are other characters telling Violet to stop asking questions. For example, Brennan and Mira both tell Violet to stop. And this could be because Violet has a way of detecting the truth and they suspect it and they don't want her to know. However, whilst truth-saying is allegedly a rare signet, we have already seen it before on that one woman who got disposed of faster than a bag of M&Ms on my period, and also on that random flyer in Corden. So I don't think it's giving Chosen One I'm super special in the way that Yaris likes to make our 2 main characters look. So I'm unsure. I think it's also worth mentioning that Yaris did say that she thinks fans will be disappointed by Violet's second signet, which could mean it's truth-saying. I feel like truth-saying is the one that maybe Yaris set Violet up most to be. It would fit better than dream walking, but there's more evidence for dream walking, so I don't really know. Other theories. Now, this one's not my theory, saw it on Reddit, but it's worth mentioning. We have Violet can control gravity as a signet. This one is mainly due to the way that she describes her falls. Like, she's constantly falling off dragons, and there was that time where Endana stopped time, and like, it kind of makes sense if Endana didn't really stop time, but like Violet stopped her fall. I'm not 100% sure about this one because I don't really see masses of evidence for it, but I do think it would actually be very cool considering they do teach physics at Basgiath, and that would infer the canonical existence of Isaac Newton and apples. Both 2 very important things. Another signet option is that Violet is an amplifier. Now, I think this one has merit. For example, Rhiannon is able to teleport an object through a wall, Violet's dagger, when Violet is in trouble with Major Varish, thus saving the entire rebellion from being exposed because of her alloy dagger, and also saving Violet from having to do lightning strikes until she dies. Rhiannon had never been able to do that. Another example, when they're in Corden, Mira says that she is unable to use her signet this far from the wards. Her signet, of course, is amplifying, boosting wards, but she can't do it because she can't extend the wards that far from the wards, if that makes sense. And yet, when the venom jumps out of Xaden Ryerson's dad's magic floating chest, Mira is suddenly able to put a ward around the Sorrengail siblings and save them from being drained by the venom. I forgot to write it down, but there is definitely another example of where Violet has been amplifying other people's powers throughout the course of this book, but I could be wrong. I could be lying. If anyone else spotted any examples that I forgot, please let me know. I forgot to write it down. But I do feel like that is pretty solid evidence towards the amplifier as a signet. I also think it would make sense with Violet's character because she constantly wants to help people and be of help to the rebellion or to her squad, and she wants people to be able to rely on her. And so I think a really good way of showing that would be Violet being able to amplify and bring out the best in other people's signets. Also, just putting in here that I forgot to mention, there is an extra theory of one of Violet's signets, which a lot of people think has merit, which is the idea that Violet is a distance jumper, which is essentially a signet whereby you can cross large distances in a single step. Very cool, very cool. And the main justification for this is a single scene in Iron Flame, where in Iron Flame Part 1, where Zaden is stationed 12 hours flight away from Violet, and in one chapter she's like pining over him and she wants to be with him, and then she is just like instantly with him, which a lot of people took to mean she must be a distance jumper. Right. I have to admit, I did not read it that way. I read it as potentially an editing oversight that they forgot to mention that she at some point did the 12-hour flight. I think we're just supposed to assume she did, rather than she crossed the distance, dragon and all, instantly. That would be crazy. That would be. There are a few other smaller pieces of evidence for this, I think. I remember seeing some people pointing them out on Reddit of instances where Violet seems far away from someone or something and then instantly appears there. And again, I think this is just maybe writing not being as clear as it should and could be. But you know what? I'm happy to be proven wrong. Another theory that is also very popular online is that Violet's second signet is seeing the dead and or some form of necromancy. And the main evidence for this one is her seeing Liam when she's being tortured. I don't really think this one's got a lot of merit, mainly because there is a lot of dead people in Basgiath at this point. The numbers are stacking up, and she's only ever seen one. Seems unlikely. It's also worth noting that that one dead person that she saw said that Malik sent them as a kindness, which very nicely brings me to my theories for the next book. I think the gods are real, and that Violet is somehow besties with God of Death, Malik. Yeah, I can see you all nodding your heads. We all agree. The reason I think this is because I've said it pretty consistently throughout my recaps, that everyone on this board is constantly talking about gods. They're always saying thanks to Dun and praise to Malik and all the other ones. And it was more subtle in Fourth Wing to the point where they were like, oh, we're super religious, and yet no one did anything religious at all. And so it felt like poor world building. But then in Iron Flame, Miss Becky really doubled down on the mentions of the gods to a suspicious degree, in my opinion. I know a lot of people, including me, had criticisms of Fourth Wing that like we were being told, not shown a lot of things. And that's very clear for the alleged religious beliefs of this whole group. I think that, in truth, Miss Becky heard that feedback and then concocted a way where she could build the gods more into the lore so that it didn't seem like poor world building, and in fact was very intentional. And I think she figured out where she was going with the gods and the lore and whatnot in Iron Flame, which is why she's doubled down on the religious mentionings and yet has still not really shown any world building or infrastructure for the gods, other than saying that the group, the squad, are allowed to go on group outings because they're second years to the local town for religious reasons, which builds out a bit more and fleshes out the idea that people are truly religious in this society. And so I think she decided, Onyx Storm, I'm going to bring the gods up. And I'm going to like really work on that. And I think it's clear by the fact that she's really doubled down on the gods in Iron Flame, whereas in Fourth Wing was very much giving, I need to flesh out this world. Let's add some gods. That's my theory. I think the gods are real. Unless, second theory, the gods are made up and are a control tactic by big government to be able to contain information once someone has died. Because the main piece of information we get about the gods is that you have to burn all of someone's belongings when they die in tribute to Malik. So maybe they're using gods as an excuse to like cover and censor information. But I think that is less likely than the gods being real, which is a ridiculous thing to say. More evidence I have to back up the idea that the gods are real. It's mentioned at the beginning of Fourth Wing that General Lilith Soringer, when she was pregnant with Violet, got really sick. She got fever and it looked like Violet was going to die. She prayed to the gods that Violet would live, and Violet came out with like silver hair and was famously super fragile and dainty and weak. This was her disability origin story, allegedly. Was the god that General Lilith prayed to Malik, the god of death? Did Malik hear General Lilith's prayer and was like, yeah, you know what? I will keep your baby alive. Could it be that Liam wasn't a hallucination of Violet's mind, but when Liam said that Malik sent him as a kindness, he meant it literally, as in Malik, god of death, actually let Liam go walkabout so that he could help Malik's favourite human, Violet, in her darkest hour. Low-key, if I was a god and my favourite human was going through a dark time, I would definitely send her dead bestie to help. This is essentially my biggest prediction for Onyx Storm, is that either the gods are real and Violet is Malik's bestie, or the gods are a big cover-up by big government to keep information locked down. Either way, I feel like both of those are decent options to be able to flesh out another book. And I also feel like they both give decent cover-up stories as to why the vague religious world building in book 1 wasn't actually bad. It was intentional. On the topic of book 3, let me go through my predictions, rapid fire. Not that we're pushed for time, clearly, if you've made it this far. I think Dane is getting a full-on redemption arc in book 3. I think he's going to get more airtime. He's going to reclaim his best friend role. He basically did that in this book. I mean, the minute he stabbed Varish, things were on the up and up. But I think Yaros has to kind of give us some we've been best friends since childhood energy between those two to really flesh out their relationship. Now it's not under any stress from them, like, almost being love interests, but like it not working out. So yeah, I think Dane and Violet are going to get more airtime together, and I think we will actually get to see Dane's personality, because I think Yaros is going to actually give him one, as opposed to just making sure you really know that he is not a good alternative love interest for Violet Sorrengail. And that leads me on to my big prediction for the entire series, because yeah, I think there are 5 books planned. Yeah, I'm going to call it now, just so no one can say that I didn't call it when I did. I think my big prediction for the series is that Violet and Zaden will both die, and Dane will marry a new girl, and they will have a child, which they will call Violet, and it'll all be very bittersweet, and Dane will have the life that he once thought he would have with Violet, with the love of his life, and then he names his kid Violet, and it's all very cute and like a little bit weird, but like in a sweet way. Either that, or Violet and Zaden pretend they're dead, and they go off and live just the two of them together, and only a few people know that they're alive. Everyone else thinks they gave their lives for the continent, and that's our happy ever after. But at this point, I'm pretty certain they're both going to die. A theory that supports the idea of Violet and Zaden dying is the fact that most of the little tidbits of information we get before the chapters that are correspondences between Violet and Zaden, say, recovered correspondences, which could mean that they found them in an old book somewhere, and they were like, oh, let me just retrieve this, and they're both well. Or it could be what most other readers think, which is that they're both dead. Next big plot theory, I think Nowlin is actually Venin, because everyone is saying that he died burning out saving Brennan. But no one's actually saying that. If you listen to what people are saying, aka Tern, aka Brennan, neither of them actually say that Nowlin died. And as we've just seen by Zaden turning Big V, the only way to stop yourself from like dying from burnout is to pull from the ground and channel more energy, which Zaden did, and then was able to kill the Venin, which he couldn't previously kill. Pulling from the ground gives you more energy than you're supposed to be able to wield, which stands to reason that you could maybe save someone who's gonna die from dying. Like, it is said multiple times throughout the book that a rider cannot pull the amount of energy needed to save a rider from death without dying. It's just not possible. And yet, Brennan is alive. Listen, you don't need an IQ like Violet's to work out that something isn't adding up here. Anytime Violet tries to bring up Nowlin with Tern just goes, we do not speak of the one who came before. He's just like, nah. He shuts it down. Doesn't ever say he dies. Same with Brennan. The only time we hear that Nowlin died was from people who thought Brennan was still dead, so their opinion is irrelevant. So, is Nowlin Big Chief Venin? Maybe. Now is the point at which I want to remind you about the rune-shaped scar on Brennan's hand. I would hazard a guess that the rune-shaped scar on Brennan's hand is very similar to the rune that they found stuffed inside the bellies of the wyvern. So this leads me to my second Nowlin theory. Is Nowlin someone who knew how to use runes and has reanimated Brennan's body the way the wyvern have been reanimated? Like, is Brennan a big meat puppet? Is my question. A bit like how the wyvern are meat puppets controlled by the venin? Is Nowlin sitting at home in his little venin house controlling Brother Brennan with his little rune? Alternative thoughts about Brennan's rune scar. Is he part venin? Are Brennan and Nowlin in it together? They are both big Vs. Not virgins, venin. The other one. Possible evidence to support the theory that Brennan is not right is that Sigale has always hated Brennan. Yeah, she really hates him more than she hates anyone else, which I think is suspicious. Now, I've seen some girlies talking on the internet about how it's important to note that Nowlin's age is never actually mentioned, and we know that Yaros loves a plot twist. So I've seen some people floating the ideas that Nowlin and Brennan weren't lovers, but that Nowlin might actually have been like Brennan's granddad or something, and the reason he gave his life trying to heal Brennan was because of like familial love. Now, if we trace the family tree, that would also make Nowlin Violet's granddad, which would also make Violet the second rider in a direct familial line that Terran has bonded to. This could explain why Violet has 2 signets, and why her lightning wielding is as powerful as it is. I personally think Nowlin and Brennan were lovers, and Nowlin turned venin to try and save Brennan out of love and desperation, because let's be honest, no one does tragedy like a straight woman writing gay characters, so. Okay, my big overall theory for the book is that the dragons are big stinking liars. I suspect the dragons know far more than we are being told. Tarn consistently tells Violet that dragons don't share things with their riders, which is kind of matched by the fact that Rhiannon's dragon was shocked that Rhiannon knew anything about like the venin and was like gagged to find out the humans knew. She was like, oh bloody how'd you find that out then? We also now know that Indana is a different breed of dragon that nobody in the book knew about except for the dragons. So the dragons managed to keep an entire separate breed of dragons a secret. And if they're keeping that a secret, I hate to think what else they've got going on in those dragon caves. Interestingly, Indana, when she talks about her dragon breed, she specifically said that she was left behind, which implies that there are other dragons of Indana's breed that still exist, but that we don't know where they are. Did they leave and all died? Did they leave and they still exist but somewhere else? Why aren't they in the Vale? We have many questions. The biggest being, why would you keep this from the humans unless you, as the dragon breeds that remain, have something to hide about the reason why the other dragons left? It's all very suspicious. This, combined with the fact that it's called the Empyrean series and we've yet to hear much of a whisper from the bloody Empyrean, has me thinking that maybe the Dragon Council has some tea to spill. Okay, theory's done. Let me give you my thoughts and feelings. The good. The side characters felt more real in this book. More of like 3D people rather than 2D objects that exist only when convenient for Violet's personal character growth and the plot. Spice chapters, as always, stellar work, Miss Becky. The banter between Zaden and Violet when they do stop arguing with each other is also fun. But to be honest, the banter that I enjoyed most in this book was the banter between Brennan, Mira, and Violet. The sibling dynamic really adds some kind of like lived-in realness to the world building of Fourth Wing, and I enjoyed that. So good. Also think the world was elaborated a lot more in this book. We got some new locations, unlocked some new parts of the map. That is also fun. I don't always think it was executed in unpredictable or interesting ways. Same for the plot twist. I do feel like that was kind of predictable. I didn't really feel any surprises. I didn't really feel anything about it. Kind of like when Lilith died. I just didn't care. As I already mentioned, I loved the kind of inclusion of translation and the idea of lost cultures and the unreliability of translation. Very cool and very relevant to right now. Whilst we're on the topic of good things, Riddick. I love my bisexual king. If anything happens to him, Rebecca, there will be words. Now, onto the things that I did not enjoy. Most of the plot. The lore and the storytelling in the majority of this book, I'm going to be honest, I think it was poorly done. That's just my opinion. Feel free to disagree. But I thought it was poorly done. I like to think that my reading comprehension is like pretty solid, and I've not had much of an issue when visualizing other fantasy and romantasy books, but to be honest, this book, I was struggling. I feel like Yaris's descriptions of places and settings and action can sometimes be quite confusing, and I end up being taken out of the story because I'm having to work so hard to figure out what
is happening rather than being in the moment that it's happening in, which is quite disruptive to the storytelling aspect. And perhaps that is just because the book is too long. Seriously, like why is it this long? For what reason? Were you getting paid by word, Miss Becky? Why did Violet, the truth is very important to me, Sorrengale, have to have the same argument with this man for 60% of this book? Why? Why did it take someone who is allegedly incredibly intelligent so long to work out that she overreacted when she was actively being a hypocrite and also lying to her friends? Like, I know EQ and IQ are something very different, but the disconnect there is wild. Why did we need so many chapters of people stressing the importance of Violet staying away from Dane Atos when Violet just goes and tells everyone about the revolution anyway? Like, I'm not being funny. The biggest threat to the rebellion was not Dane's signet. It was Violet Sorrengale's mouth. The death of General Lilith Sorrengale does tell us that we can anticipate a main character death in each book of the series, because we've got Liam and we've got General Lilith now. Sorry, Nadine, you don't count. But honestly, did not care that General Lilith died. I think this has got to be the least interesting character that she could have killed off. And I think that's why she's done it. Because I think Yaris has put herself in a situation now where people were so tired during this book of Violet and Zaden just having the same conversation that they looked to the interactions of the side characters to get their fill of interesting. And by the end of the book, you can't really kill off any of these characters anymore because we like them all now. And they're kind of integral to different parts of the plot that you've set up throughout the course of the book in order to distract the reader from the fact there's nothing going on with these two. Like, let's be real. General Liz Sorrengale sent her allegedly disabled daughter into a 70% death rate quadrant without even an explanation as to why she was doing it. She's not a good mum, babes. However, this does mean that there's probably going to be a death of one of these characters in Onyx Storm. So I guess watch out for your faves. One of my biggest issues with this book, I've mentioned a number of times throughout all of this, but it's that Violet, I don't think, is canonically disabled. And I don't get why, because I think it would have been very easy to add a line that talks about the fact that she has a condition that everyone knows she has, rather than everyone just thinking she's weak. I'm sure there's a reason for it. I don't know what it is, but it really bothers me because I don't think that it can necessarily be counted as good representation and good disability representation if the majority of the people reading the book did not understand or clock that she has a disability. I mean, her body T, but the figure is not figureheading, you know what I mean? And you could say that it's invisible disability representation because it's not always clear just from a couple of symptoms that someone has that they have a disability, and that's fair. As someone with an invisible disability, I get it. But I also would like that disability awareness and presentation in books to be a little bit more clear, even if that sometimes overcorrects the reality of what it's like to live with an invisible disability. And the reason for that is because able-bodied readers are not reading disabled characters through a lens of disability. They will not automatically see Violet's symptoms and think she has a disability. They'll just think, oh, we're using the FMC as weak trope. Right. And I think sometimes the responsibility of the author is to communicate your point a little more clearly, even if it is slightly pandering to the majority of readers and kind of hand-holding their hand to understand a complex thing like disability, especially invisible disability. And I completely get why some people don't want her to do that, and I completely understand why that would feel to some people like a betrayal of the invisible disability experience, which is that people don't recognize you have a condition and therefore undermine you or belittle you for it, which is something I myself has experienced, and I do understand it. I just think that when you're writing to an audience who is majority able-bodied, who will not pick up that she has a disability, in order for this to be good rep, which we desperately need in fantasy settings for disabled characters and people with disabilities, I think it needs to be canon. I think she needs to have an actual condition that people talk about and mention. And you don't have to call it EDS if that doesn't fit with your kind of world building, but give it something. At the very least, I would like to see an in-text mention of invisible disabilities existing within the world. If disabilities do exist in the world, and we know they do because Yesenia is canonically disabled, why is it that they aren't recognizing that Violet has a condition and is not just weak and dainty and fragile in a tropey way? Is this because invisible disabilities don't exist within the world and Violet is just disability coded without having an actual disability? Which, you know, that can be a thing. There are lots of disabilities that have not been diagnosed, and you don't need a diagnosis to suffer from the consequences of what could be an undiagnosed disability. But it would be nice for readers in text to know of invisible disabilities or conditions that are similar to what Violet has, but perhaps she hasn't had a diagnosis because of political issues of her mother being a general and not wanting her daughter to be seen as weak. There are lots of in-text reasons in world that I feel like could canonically explain this situation and make it a lot clearer to readers that Violet has a condition, a disability, or is disability coded without them having to be told by people who've done research and read outside of the text to be told that she has EDS. Obviously, I am critiquing this, but I am quite grateful that there is an FMC who at least has some form of physical condition or disability. I do think Yaris deserves some flowers for her at least attempt to build a more inclusive FMC. Am I frustrated that she basically took away all the consequences of having a disabled person there whilst signposting her as disabled? Yes, but at the end of the day, she's doing a lot more to at least try and raise awareness. One, for a condition like EDS, which is largely flown under the radar, and two, for disabilities in general, particularly invisible disabilities. So for a lot of readers, I know that this was their first introduction to EDS and to a lot of other similar physically limiting disabilities. So credits for her for trying to write a disabled character within a very physically demanding world. Listen, it's hard to do everything right, and I fully think she deserves like a little bit of credit for at least trying. That's just my take. You are more than welcome to disagree, especially if you have EDS. I'd love to hear what you think because you're more qualified to talk on this than me. But all of that considered, my biggest issue with this book is that it is just too long. It's too long, a lot like this video, and I don't like it. My final rating for this book, I'm giving it a 2 out of 5. Truthfully, I would not have read this if not for the fact that I was doing a recap on it. I don't think I've found characters this insufferable in such a long time. And it's insufferable to a degree where not only did it make me not want to finish the story, but it made me hate all of the even slightly good parts about the story because I was retrospectively hating on it so much. It made me hate the first book even more because I was like, you know what, actually looking back, you weren't even that hot. Do you know how hard that is to do? To ruin a memory of someone? A fictional someone? I do think most people reading this recap could probably tell I wasn't enjoying myself. I don't know if I want to do Onyx Storm. I really don't. If this book is anything to go by, listen, I'm not a masochist, okay? I'm just not. That said, if this gets 50,000 likes, yeah, I'll do it, sure. The next book is called Onyx Storm, which I actually have somewhere, hold on. This is it, this is the book. This is very sweet because I think the only thing that is referred to as being onyx in this book is Xaden's eyes. And of course, Violet is a lightning girly, so Onyx Storm is just those two combined, really. Very sweet. And I'm sure that's just a reference to them being a lovely couple who get to stay together throughout this book and don't argue at all. Right, Becca? Surely nothing else could go wrong. If you made it to the end, well done. You did better than General Lilith did. Liking, commenting, and sharing this video really helps me out. These videos take forever to make. Feel free to post it, make clips of it, put it on your booktok account out of context. That would be great. Thank you so much. Let me know which book or series you would like me to cover next, and the ones with the most likes, I will consider. Thank you so much to Incogni for sponsoring part of today's video. Do click that little link in the description down below. Supporting my sponsors helps to support my channel, and I'm very grateful. And don't forget to subscribe to my second channel, Eleanor L. Bateman. It's linked in the description down below for more book content. That's right, I've got a new channel. Technically an old channel, but I've not used her in a long time. Okay, so she's like an old dusty book that I'm just blowing the dust off. Go drink some water and have a good day.